We are live at this moment on YouTube, so we can get started. Please.
Hello all, greetings and welcome to Delhi National Capital Region Power BI User Group. This was imagined a couple of months back and with encouragement from Dhruvin, who has already been an active part of the community, and collaboration from Prince and Kumar. We are finally here and we see this day going this group live. The idea is like other user groups only. We will share learnings, collaborate on Power BI and Power Platform, and we'll bring together learning aspirants and also it's a platform where we all can share our experiences, ask questions, impart demos, and also discussions on latest topics or updates that are happening in the Power BI world. And we all will abide by a professional decorum and will try to be assertive in our communications, which is a very light-hearted expectation. And so without wasting much time, we'll start with our first session. I have the pleasure to introduce Sanjiv Venkatram, CEO of Prudentia Consulting. And he's a very eminent personality who has been, has worked for Microsoft a very long duration. And he's a Microsoft MVP, MCT, as well as a Microsoft speaker. And he also holds several US patents in automatics and instrumentation. And recently I saw a very interesting demonstration of integrating that all with Power Platform, how smartly he did that. So we hope to learn further from him. Welcome to the platform, Sanjiv sir, and the platform is yours.
Bhai, thank you so very much for the very kind and liberal introduction. It really means a lot. And what you folks have been doing, Dhruvin, yourself, Abhinav, Prince, RO from our side over here, it's absolutely fabulous. So just got to doff my hat. You guys are outstanding. Or for the broader community, I just wanted to say, I am going to share my screen first of all. Kindly let me know if you can actually see my screen. And I'm going to minimize. Can you see my screen?
Yes, it's visible.
Wonderful, So to the broader community, first of all, thank you so very much for giving me this opportunity to being in front of you. Or, it is Sunday, and the fact that you've taken time away from family, it really means a lot to all of us, especially nowadays, these are, sort of strange times that we actually live in with what's going on with COVID. Also some, how do you say, unfortunate circumstances over the past couple of days with very young people getting impacted with whatever it is, so strange times. So it actually, if there is one thing take away from all this, is that we actually be close to family, give our family members a big hug. And the community is also a family, right? I mean, to me, Abhinav, thank you very much for the kind introduction, but I've been a community member for the past 4 or 5 years, As Abhinav was saying, I used to be with Microsoft, but once I got out of Microsoft, I got introduced to the community. And that's when I truly discovered the true power, if you will, of community, the transformative power of community. So a big hug to all the community members. It is amazing what is actually possible here. The last time we actually spoke, I keep giving this statistic all the time, is, if you take 1% of the working population between the age group of 25 to 55, that is an astounding or staggering 5 million people in this, and that is just amazing, right? And that's almost the entire population of Singapore, right? So if that doesn't show you as to what the potential of Bharat is, it is amazing. It is absolutely staggering what is possible, right? And then, there are many different ways by which we can actually contribute, if you will, to that, 5 million audience, if you will. And one of the easiest ways for us to actually do is with community, right? And it can be any kind of community. Yeah? I mean, it doesn't have to be a technical community, but that's a great way of actually like extending your hand to somebody, or to a group of people, sharing your thoughts, learning from them, and then growing together. So that's a fantastic way of reaching out to people, right? So with this, let us actually look at maybe as if you take community as a backdrop of great things that you could actually do. Perhaps we could take a step down and get into maybe Microsoft communities for the simple reason, for the over the past 25 years, I've actually been a user, if you will, of Microsoft in various different forms. I started off in engineering. I don't know, in some kind of moment of weakness, I moved over to the business side. So, I was in corporate finance and things like that, deal structuring, all this good stuff for almost 15 years. And through all of this, I've been an avid user, if you will. Excuse me, my kid is screaming over there. But, have been an avid user, if you will, of Microsoft technology, right? And then now with Power Platform coming on board, and especially for users, it truly is nirvana. I mean, call it what you may, nirvana, promised land, Mecca, whatever it is, it is that right now. So with this, the community dimension takes on an even stronger, if you will, role or a perspective. It becomes even stronger. And the reasons why I look upon it actually as that is for these reasons. I'm just gonna go over here. So 3 sort of like basic things with Microsoft communities is what I have actually seen over the past 4 years. And this is some of it may be a little bit of a repeat for some of you, but it's okay, right? The first thing is learning, right? I mean, the amount of knowledge and the wealth of knowledge that people actually have. We've got 2 wonderful people that we just looked at a couple minutes ago. Dhruvin and Abhinav are doing absolutely fantastic stuff. I've learned so much from them. That's the promise, right? Is learning, right? The second thing, basically, and I'm talking purely of benefits as to what I take away or what you could take away from the community, right? The second thing is about, public speaking. So I'm literally, literally 1 year shy of 50. So I've had these experiences. I wish I had these experiences when I was actually in my early 20s, mid 20s, early 30s, so on and so forth, where you may have all these great ideas, you may have a lot of knowledge, etc. But the way you actually land impact at the end of the day, to be able to change people's, how do you say, introduce the change, let me just say that, right, is by actually effective communication. And this community here allows you to do that, right? If you raise your hand, I'm sure you'd be able to come up and actually speak and say a few things. And by doing that on a regular basis, you will begin to realize that, initially, yes, it may be a little all over the place, but over a period of time, you'll actually be able to structure your thoughts, effectively communicate whatever you have to communicate with the community, and without the pressures of your managers and managers looking over you, right? That's the beautiful thing about the community, is that you can actually do that without, some, managerial pressure or peer pressure, right? So fantastic way. And the third thing, and I'm not truly exactly a great fan, if you will, of this, is this thing called as MVP, right? And then MVP to me is basically a recognition from Microsoft for providing help to the community, right? For you taking the lead to look at whatever is actually coming down the pike from Microsoft. There's a hose of information, as you guys know, across the many different fields across Microsoft that, information's coming at us. So what MVPs kind of sort of do is they get that information, distill it, put it in front of, people in their own words, and then inspire, if you will, the community. Exactly what Dhruvin is actually doing right now, right? I mean, I like his stuff, and I get inspired to actually learn, and then, put my hand in, and then, share whatever I know, right? So that is the reason why you actually end up getting an MVP. So what I would say is, please try, right? Go right ahead, kindly contribute, and then be recognized as one, right? Apparently, if you're in, how do you say, the thick of technology, MVP is very well recognized for you to actually build a strong career, path on. And please don't be shy about it, to actually bring out, whatever your knowledge is, etc. Please go out there, put it out there. Don't be shy, and be recognized for, the great work that you do. Okay, so these are the benefits, if you will, that I've gotten from the community, right? But broadly speaking, in all of this, I would say it's about winning hearts and minds of people, right? That is the fundamental foundation on which, communities are actually built. Nothing more, right? So with this, let us actually get into, the benefits, let us say, along similar lines, right? One is basically, my contributions, if you will, to community. I've lost a little bit about this QR code, so I'll come back to that one. But, as an example, what I have given back is this gentleman out here, right? His name is Mohammed Falil, right? He is in Norway. He reached out to me about like 7-8 months ago, or a little, probably somewhere around there, looking at some of the posts that, some of us actually done. And then he said, hey, look, I would like to actually contribute to the community. What can I actually do? It is a great way of actually sharing information with them. So I went ahead and we did a post together. He's very good, on the Office 365 side with Teams and adaptive cards and things of that nature. So we combined aspects of Power Platform, aspects of, IoT, aspects of, Office 365 to do an integrated, connected field service, if you will, kind of scenario, right? So the point is you end up actually like giving back, right? You actually end up giving back to the community by doing these posts and sharing your knowledge, by encouraging other people to actually come in and participate in the community. When somebody actually does great work, going up there and actually saying, hey, look, phenomenal job. I learned X, Y, and Z from you. And then also starting your own communities. Nothing on earth prevents us from starting our own communities as well. For God's sakes, there are 5 million people, in that, working population in India. What an opportunity to reach that. And let's look at how many people are there today. Probably no more than, 25, 30 people at the end of the day, a drop in the bucket as to what is really possible, right? So kindly go ahead and you do your outreach to actually, service the community, if you will. And finally, sometimes what happens is if you're actually looking for, let us say, roles within Microsoft, right? I mean, many people actually do that. They kind of get their, whatever certifications, their MVP, etc., and then they become, how do you say, absorbed by Microsoft. They apply for a role and Microsoft sees all this great work that they've actually done, and they say, hey, fantastic, come on board. Of course, you got to go through the process and all that. But it's a lot easier to get in when you've demonstrated, commitment to the community, to the Microsoft community. It's a lot easier for you to share the stories as opposed to someone who's coming in completely cold, So it adds a tremendous layer, if you will, to get into if your aspiration is actually to get into Microsoft. And then, through friends inside, etc., you can actually get to know people as well. And then they can actually pull you in as well, right? So many different benefits. Now, I remember this one's actually a business applications community, QR code. If you folks are interested, kindly do scan this. I'm going to give you a couple minutes and then kindly do become members of that. We do Power Platform, more on the Power Apps and the Power BI, Power Automate side, plus Dynamics 365. And Dynamics 365 is a broad umbrella of, different business applications, starting from sales and going all the way down to finance and operations. It's a beautiful umbrella. So we do, activities on that. If someone's interested, kindly do join, right? So we talked about, what you can take away from the community, right? Learning, public speaking, things like MVP, and then obviously certifications, so on and so forth. And what you can get is basically, connections across the globe, people like you who you can learn from, contribute to, and then, get people interested in becoming part of the community, right? And the second thing is basically, it is being able to connect with people at Microsoft in case you're actually looking for opportunities at Microsoft, right? So those are some of the benefits that I've gotten, right? So with this, right, with this, let us actually transition over, come down one more step and talk about, like, let us say a little bit of Power BI, right? I'm gonna show you a couple things, and then we have got heroes here today, and we'll hand, the forum over to the heroes for them to do their stuff. I'm just gonna take a couple minutes and then stop here, right? One is, if I look at this one as an example, it basically is your traditional reporting, right? As an example out here, I was in engineering. So I used to develop, if you're in front of the car, you have your speedometers and tachometers and all that. And that used to be an instrument cluster, which is the brains of the car. Your body controller, your engine controller, all of the signals actually get centralized in the instrument panel. And from there, the signals actually go out to the car as well. So I used to be part of a team that would design that. And then this one over here is a small little clock module. There are over 1,000 components in a tiny little clock like this, right? So the BI over here kind of describes the breakdown, the cost breakdown of this clock. And the idea here is, as you look at a pie, like $1 of the price of the module, after you take away, your SG&A, sales and general administration cost, your profit, design and development costs, etc., one of the most important costs that you end up actually leaving is the material cost, right? So the reason why I did this was, to some of my friends at Microsoft who are very sort of IT orientated, to kind of say that in a manufacturing scenario, specializing or focusing on material cost to bring down, if you bring down 1% of this material cost, it translates to millions of dollars of savings, right? So to tell them that, hey, look, talk to design engineers, because they do a lot of this, design work, which translates into actually materials. And if you want to influence that material cost and improve productivity and efficiency in manufacturing or in automotive, please talk to the design engineers. That is the Uber message over here, right? And then you can actually get into the details of it. I mean, I used to be a design engineer, right? I did not know all of this stuff. We used to get the data out of J.D. Edwards or something like that and hang out with Excel, right? Whereas over here, I could do so many things in order to look at, hey, look, how does my cost breakdown actually look by sub-assemblies, so on and so forth. This still falls, if you will, under the traditional, reporting umbrella of what Power BI does, right? And the reporting has been for a long time, so I won't bore you with this. But then, this is traditional stuff that you actually do, right? Along the lines, you can actually also do simulations in Power BI. So I'm going to click on this guy over here. What this one basically is an engineering simulation, right? So when I joined this, I used to work for a Japanese company, an automotive company. So when I started off, they had a big, huge book of thousands of pages, right? And they used to have these for general considerations for design and a bunch of different formulae over here. So literally in 95, when I started off, my manager was punching away on a calculator and trying to solve, sitting the whole day here. Well, you could actually use Power BI for manuals. Each of these tabs can be one, simulation, if you will. And then out here, I'm designing a spring. All of this is my input. All of this is here is my output, right? So I set up my dimensions here. I push the spring down. And as I push the spring down, basically, whoops, I did it the wrong way. So if I push the spring down here, there is a force that is acting on the spring. And because, somebody is actually pushing on the spring, like if somebody pushes me, there is a stress on it, right? So the stress increases. And if I change the dimensions over here, you see the arrow shows red, which means to say that as you're designing the spring is actually broken. So what you could do is you can literally do some simulations. And as I make the diameter of the wire here smaller, you can actually see that the results are getting better. And this kind of looks okay to me. So I can, this is real, right? I've got all my materials over here. I've got all my dimensions over here. So I can take this information, I can put it on a drawing right now, send it over to the manufacturer to actually design And then once the data actually comes, once the part actually comes back in, I could actually test it, use Azure machine learning with Power BI, blah, 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 right? So there's an entire domain on simulations and actually like doing your data analytics work that you could do with Power BI, right? So that's, if you will, the second component. The third one, and then this one, I don't have my BI with me here. My Azure subscription for this actually ended. But what I can show you is I do a gazillion trainings on, Power Platform, right? And then at the end of last year, one way of actually thanking people for all the, help that they've actually given me is to actually set up keywords. You guys, probably know this already, right? So you set up all the feedback that you get from your customers, you throw it up in Power Query. Women's best friend is Power Query. So you take that, you throw it up to Azure Machine Learning, Azure Cognitive Services, sorry, you get a bunch of key phrases, and then you can actually present it elegantly over here. In my case, patience comes out very strongly. I'm very happy that it actually comes out. I'm a very patient guy. Leave no child behind, like President Bush used to say, is my mantra, right? So very elegantly can be presented and say thank you to people, to the users who have actually taken your courses, right? So that's another way of actually getting back to people with responses, feedback from customer service surveys, and so on and so forth. So there you're actually using cognitive services, right? The last one over here is an interesting example, and this goes back to my, again, engineering days, is where you can actually combine a little bit of like, applications, a little bit of IoT, a little bit of like, algorithms, so on and so forth. It is adaptive cruise control is actually one form of AI. AI has been around for a long time. We in non-IT engineering have known this for a long time. We don't make like a much fanfare about it like the IT industry. It's been around for a long, people who are in engineering, physics, the sciences know about AI for quite some time. They call it with the actual the name of the algorithm, if you will. They don't actually call it AI or machine learning or whatever, So as an example over here, this is something to do with adaptive cruise control. What does that mean? When you're going on a highway, your Delhi highway, when you set the speed to, let's say, 60 kilometers an hour, the car actually, you can let go of your accelerator, right? The car actually goes there at 60, whether it's going up on a hill or down a valley, right? And that's exactly what this is doing. This motor is going to be at a constant speed, if you will, of 3,500 RPM, regardless of what I do. The reason is I've actually used this algorithm to, hone in. See this black line over here? It's actually a Power BI tile, right? So it sets the speed to 3,500 RPM. And you're measuring the actual speed in green, and then this goes away and it oscillates around the black line and it converges to 3,500, right? Exactly like your car does. It goes up a hill, the speed goes down, the engine runs faster, and then brings the speed up to your 60 kilometers an hour to actually make it, constant, right? So these sort of things can actually be done as well. So if you go back, traditional reporting, simulations, you have cognitive services and, integration with AI, as well actually with things like IoT, right? And this is just, the beginning, right? There are so many other things you can actually do with your Power BI. It's mind-boggling. And some of the work that you folk have done, some of the work that your friends have done, it's amazing. I just look at that and go, wow, there is so much to do over here. And that's the beauty of it, right? It's an ocean for you to go in, you make some waves yourself, but then you also learn the, ocean of knowledge there is, and then, and go from there, right? So with this, basically what I'll do is I shouldn't have clicked that. I'm gonna, just go over to the last one. So with this, I'm gonna actually, come to the end of the talk, is 3 key points, folk. One is, as you know, with 5 million people, and now we are global, we are literally global, right? It's a massive opportunity for us to win the hearts and minds of, people and get people excited, exactly like what, folks like Dhruvin and Abhinav are actually doing. So it's a huge opportunity, right? So kindly do so. It doesn't take anything. All it is a team's call, that's all, and your ideas, right? The second thing is, the power of, communities and being able to improve your leadership skills. It's not just about like technical skills, right? Being able to communicate effectively, being able to organize these meetups and get people together. How do you book the event in advance? How do you reach out to people so you get, these are all, organizational skills that will come in very handy at your workplace or even with your customers, so on and so forth, right? So that's, a fantastic thing that we can actually learn from the community, right? And the third thing is truly the power, if you will, of Microsoft platforms, again, going back to winning hearts and minds of people. When I show some of these things and actually showing is one thing. When you actually do projects with customers and actually go through, the things with them. And the way I work is I don't take requirements and I run away. I literally am with the customer as a friend in front of them, walking them through what I'm actually doing. I literally walk through them because they become friends. And then you don't hide anything from friends. You show them exactly what you're doing. And then that's a way by which they integrate with you and you win their hearts and minds. Okay. So with this, I come to the end of my talk. I'm sorry to have taken up more time if I have, but then kindly do scan this QR code if you'd like to get connected. And then, all the very best, folk, all the very best. Wish you much success. And, kindly take up the mantle, start your own groups, join with Dhruvin and team and do stuff, but also start your own groups, inspire a bunch of people, and at the end of it all, enjoy. Okay. With this, I hand it back to Dhruvin and Abhinav. Thank you so very much, folk.
Thank you so much, Sanjiv sir. This was listening to this was like a music to the ears, and
thank you so much.
I even if I didn't know Power BI or Power Platform, even if I was not a techie, this is for everyone. This keynote was for everyone. I'll say who wants to learn technology, who is not from Microsoft platform, or who is in general. Just trying to learn something and listen to something. So this was amazing. I'll see.
Very kind.
I'll go back and listen to it again. This was so good. Thank you so much.
Very kind. Very kind. Thank you so much for the opportunity here. And you guys are doing fabulous work. All the very best.
Thank you so much, sir.
Awesome.
So it's time for the next speaker, I guess. So Kumar, would you like to introduce?
Yeah. So, hello everyone.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hey. So it's my pleasure, and I'm very thrilled to introduce to everyone Nikola. He's currently the manager analytics at Avande, and he's from Austria. And he's a person who brings out music from data actually. And he is the founder of various channels, and it helps us to learn many things into Power BI. So some of them are Pluralsight and Data Mozart as well. His blogs, his sharing has given me variety to learn into Power BI world, and some of his latest sharings were Synapse integration with Power BI and the Power BI Fest that he currently hosting right now. So he comes with a Microsoft background with SQL Server, Power BI, Power Platform, and whatnot. I will keep on going. So without much ado, let me hand it over to Nikola.
Thank you, Kumar. I'll start sharing and let's then start talking. Hopefully you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Then, hi everybody. Good afternoon, India, and good morning from Austria because it's 9:30 a.m. here on my side, and I'm extremely happy to be with all of you here virtually, of course, and talk about technologies and products that I truly love and adore. First of all, huge thanks to Abhinav, Dhruvin, Prince, and to you, Kumar, for inviting me. It's really a pleasure and honor to be part of this inaugural event, and I wish you best of luck in the future with running Delhi Power BI user group. So today we will talk about Azure Synapse Analytics, or to be more specific, about Serverless SQL pool within Synapse Analytics from a perspective of Power BI developer. So we will try to cover some interesting scenarios and understand how these two products work in synergy. Okay, so before we start, Kumar did an introduction, but I will spend maybe a minute or two just to expand on this. My name is Nikola Ilic. I'm originally from Belgrade in Serbia, but for the last, now it's more than 5 years, I live in a wonderful city of Salzburg in Austria, and I work as a manager analytics for Avanade, joint company by Microsoft and Accenture. The reason the living in Salzburg was the reason why I've chosen my nickname Data Mozart. You probably know that Salzburg is a birthplace of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, so therefore I was brave enough to use his last name as part of my nickname. And that's why my motto is make music from your data. You can find me on web. I'm regularly blogging at data-mozart.com. I'm also active on social media, so feel free to connect if you like. Other than that, I'm Microsoft Data Platform MVP, certified trainer, and have also some courses on Pluralsight, privately, father of 2 kids, and true football and Barca fan, as you can conclude looking at the photo on your screens and looking at my t-shirt. Okay, so let me briefly walk you through the contents of our today's session. We will start with quick comparison between traditional and modern data warehousing concepts in order to put our discussion in the proper context. Then I will introduce you with Azure Synapse Analytics and core components of this platform, which will enable you to better understand the next unit. And next unit is what is a serverless SQL pool, why should you consider it for your analytic workloads, and finally, in which scenarios would it make sense to go this way. We will then examine different techniques of using T-SQL to retrieve the data from semi-structured and non-structured sources such as CSV or Parquet files. Straight after that, I will cover the best practices for using Synapse Serverless SQL pool and how to get the maximum of this engine. And last but not least, as I'm sure that most of you guys are here to find out how much this costs, we will talk about pricing, what counts for the pricing, and how to manage your costs, and finally how to save the money in your wallets. There will be a short case study so you can get a better feeling of different features within Synapse Serverless SQL pool and how it works in synergy with Power BI and how you can leverage this still new technology when you are creating your Power BI solutions. So I know that this session is targeting Power BI professionals, but to be able to follow along, I will assume that you have some knowledge of T-SQL, and as I will often refer to terms and concepts related to traditional SQL Server and its SQL dialect. So if you're completely new to SQL, maybe you will find it challenging to absorb everything that follows. Nevertheless, please don't leave the session because of that. Just feel free to ask the question if needed. Okay, so the story starts with a quick look back to some concepts that were and still are omnipresent in the world of data. There are multiple ongoing discussions these days about the relevance of traditional data warehousing concepts, and I don't want to go deep into these discussions. I will just shortly express my belief that traditional data warehousing is far from being dead. It's more in an evolution phase, adapting to many new challenges typical for large data volumes or different flavors of data sources, let's put it this way. Okay, so in a typical traditional data warehousing scenario, as you can see in this illustration, you would go and collect your data from multiple different sources, perform some transformations, data cleansing, so on, before putting consolidated data into a relational data warehouse. This was and still is the focal point of your reporting solutions, a single source of truth for your data, and you could go and build various reports from there using a whole range of different tools such as Crystal reports, if you are old enough like me, SQL Server reporting services, or Power BI, if we talk about Microsoft solutions. You can also build an additional semantic layer using analysis services to create cubes, both tabular and multidimensional, and then target those cubes with reporting tools that I already mentioned. And don't forget good old Excel too. And if you think of a traditional data warehouse, as its name suggests, like of a warehouse, you are close to truth. It is like a large store. And modern data warehouse is like a big extra big distribution center. And in this traditional large store that you can see on your left side, products are already unpacked, prepared, they're ready for use. So it's like someone extracted them from the boxes, transformed their original packages and loaded the shelves in the store. I assume you are getting the analogy with extracting, transforming and loading, so traditional ETL stuff, and they are ready for consuming. On the other hand, in this big distribution center, well, you see how items are being stored there. But if I need a box of, let's say, Coca-Cola, I can also pull it directly from there, from the shelves here, without needing to go to my local shop to take it. So as you may see in this illustration, modern data warehouse accepts data from the whole range of different sources, structured, semi-structured, non-structured. This can be graph-like data from social networks, data streams from different devices, data from JSON documents, CSV files. So literally anything you can imagine what is capable of storing some kind of data. Now, this big distribution center can keep the data in its original form without need to apply some additional steps in order to prepare this data for further analysis. That means that whole range of different data professionals can benefit of having a solution like this. For example, data analysts can use Power BI or similar reporting tools to create reports over this data, while, let's say, data scientists and machine learning engineers can create and train their models right away. The key concept here is that unifying experience that modern data warehouse provides. With that in mind, there are multiple benefits that modern data warehouse provides. From a technology perspective, just a second, I haven't introduced my co-presenters, my kids. Just a second, sorry. So from a technology perspective, modern data warehouse brings the following advantages. It is always, or let's say almost always available, then it scales to extremely large amounts of data. It's also very flexible because you can quickly get insights from literally any data source, which means that less time is needed for data movement and data preparation. In the end, that brings us to reduced overall ownership costs, which is one of the biggest advantages of modern data warehouse. So do you recognize the object you see on your screen? Yes, exactly. That's the famous Swiss knife. So you can cut the paper, you can open a bottle of wine or beer, or even cut some smaller items. And all of that using one single tool. Now, if you're asking yourself, what on earth does Swiss knife have in common with Synapse Analytics? Well, you can think of Synapse as a single tool that can satisfy all your data workload needs. Do you need to import data from multiple different sources? Synapse can do that. Do you need to transform data before serving it? Synapse can do that. Do you need to store the data? Synapse can do this for you. Do you need to query non-relational data or even files directly? Synapse can do that. Watch out now. Do you need to query non-relational data or even files directly using a plain old T-SQL? Synapse can do that. I hear you say it again, Nikola. So yes, you can write T-SQL to query data from CSV, from JSON or Parquet files, but more on that in a few minutes. Do you need to build machine learning models? Synapse can manage them for you. Finally, do you need to create your Power BI report straight from the Synapse? Yes, that is also possible. As you may rightly conclude, Synapse is a one-stop service for all your data tasks. Or if someone asks you to define Azure Synapse in 3 words, you can freely say that it's an end-to-end analytic solution. So let's go and take a quick, I like to call it 10,000 feet high overview of different components that make Synapse Analytics an integrated analytics solution. For SQL professionals, there are 2 pools in Synapse. Dedicated pool is the official successor of former Azure SQL Data Warehouse, and then there is a Serverless Sql pool, which will be the highlight of our today's talk. Just forget this naming here. This is a little bit outdated illustration. Previously, when Azure Synapse was in public preview, Serverless Sql pool was called on-demand pool. So now it's Serverless Sql pool, just to be clear. Then folks familiar with Python, Scala, or Spark SQL can leverage usage of Apache Spark pool for processing large volumes of data. When it comes to storage, there are also a bunch of possible options to choose from, starting with traditional relational way of storing data in SQL data warehouse, then also Apache Spark tables, or then Azure Data Lake storage Gen 2, all the way to non-relational document style storage mode in Cosmos DB. You can also orchestrate data movement using Azure Data Factory pipelines and mapping data flows. And finally, you can quickly visualize your data using, for example, Power BI. And watch out, here is the key takeaway. You have all these tools under one roof, either natively, either as linked services. And you can build, manage, and deploy your end-to-end data solutions from within a web-based user interface called Synapse Studio. We will take a closer look to this tool later in the session, as we now need to lay some more theoretical background. So as you may notice on the previous illustration, Synapse Analytics offers 3 different analytic pools for performing different computations over your data. 2 of them are SQL based, which means that you can use familiar T-SQL syntax for querying the data. Also, 2 of them are provisioned, dedicated SQL pool and Apache Spark pool, which means that you need to set some kind of infrastructure in advance. And more important, that means that you will be charged not only for computing power, but also for the storage you are using. Now, when it comes to integration with Power BI, as dedicated SQL pool works more or less the same as traditional SQL database, and Spark pool is out of the scope of this session. I would like to explain in more depth Serverless SQL pool part of Azure Synapse and how it works in synergy with Power BI. Again, before we dive deeper into a detailed overview of the Serverless SQL pool, let's take a quick look from our aeroplane on its architecture. The core component of the Serverless SQL pool is distributed query processing engine called Polaris. Polaris engine runs on here on this control node, and basically this control node represents the brain of this control node represents the brain of the whole architecture, and control node splits the query into smaller parts and forwards those parts down to compute nodes for execution. So instead of a query, which we had in a traditional SQL world, we have something we call task, and task is nothing else but this smaller chunk of query that is pushed down for the execution. Last but not least, unlike in dedicated SQL pool where you are in charge for defining computing power and how many compute nodes will be used, Serverless SQL pool scales automatically to support your data workloads. Okay, so I promised in the beginning when I was introducing the agenda that we will try to answer to 3 key W's regarding Serverless SQL pool: what, why, and when. So let's start with what. And I'll try to keep this as short as possible. Serverless SQL pool is essentially a distributed data processing system, or maybe it's better to say a query service that enables you to query data directly from the data lake using well-known T-SQL syntax. There is no any cost for the resources, storage, etc. You will be charged only for the amount of data processed by running your queries. We will later examine what counts in the amount of data processed and how you can control it. At this moment, just keep in mind that Serverless SQL pool is a typical pay-per query model. In the end, you can think of Serverless SQL, if you're coming from a SQL world, as advanced polybase or cloud polybase. Underlying technologies are not exactly the same, but use case scenarios are pretty much. In polybase, you don't have open row set function to perform ad hoc analysis, as everything is handled through external tables. But yes, you can think of serverless SQL in the end as a polybase on steroids. Now, as we hopefully answered what is a serverless SQL pool, let's try to examine why you would consider using it. First and most important, you don't need to set up any kind of infrastructure or clusters to make this thing running. Once you create your Azure Synapse workspace, serverless SQL pool will be created by default. And that means you can start querying your Azure Data Lake storage as soon as you create the workspace. And that significantly reduces time to analysis. As already mentioned, when you provision dedicated SQL pool or Apache Spark pool, you will pay not only for computing power required to satisfy your data workloads, but also for the data storage. Here, with serverless SQL pool, you pay 0 for the data storage. Finally, learning a new programming language just for querying data from the data lake can be daunting for many professionals, especially those coming from the SQL world. Therefore, a big benefit of serverless SQL pool is the possibility to use well-known T-SQL syntax to retrieve the data directly from the, let's say, CSV or Parquet files, or even from the documents stored in Cosmos DB. Fine. Yeah, in full honesty, serverless SQL pool is not a magic wand that will solve all your data requirements. So it's extremely important to understand in which scenarios you should consider using it. So let's answer to our final W, when would you use serverless SQL pool? First scenario, I need to gain quick insight into the data that is stored in my data lake. I want to see, for example, maximum or minimum value within a column, or quickly identify some outliers. I can go and perform basic data exploration of the data stored in CSV or Parquet files using serverless SQL, and then based on insights, I can decide how to leverage this data for further analysis. Next, I want to build a kind of a relational abstraction layer on top of disparate data stored between, let's say, CSV files, Cosmos DB, and relational database. This way, I can build a logical data warehouse, so without needing to physically move or transform data in a classic ETL way. So let me quickly show you what I'm talking about here. And here, let me zoom it a little bit. So here I have one view, database view, that combines data coming from CSV and Parquet files. And then I'm joining another Parquet file, completely different file. And I can write this using normal regular T-SQL syntax using, for example, top clause, where clause to retrieve the data from disparate data sources. Let me show you how this looks like. For example, here I have a CSV file, a view that targets CSV file, which is stored in my Azure Data Lake. So this is the location where my CSV file is stored, and this view just retrieves data from this CSV file. Then I have a Parquet file, which is stored externally, somewhere in the cloud. It's the yellow cab taxi sample data set provided by Microsoft. So it's stored somewhere in the cloud. So I'm combining, in this view, I'm combining those two, CSV and Parquet files. And then I have another Parquet file, which is completely different than those two. And I can mix and match all the results within one data set. And then I can expose this data set, for example, through Power BI. So when my Power BI users connect to this data set, they don't have an idea what is in the background. So they are querying a regular SQL database, but in the background, there are multiple different sources. So basically here, I could also include Cosmos DB. I could also include the data coming from relational data sources and mix everything writing T-SQL. So that's one of the most powerful features of the serverless SQL pool. Finally, if you want to perform simple but at the same time scalable data transformation within the data lake itself, using the language you know, and this language is a T-SQL, as you go and transform your data, it is quickly available for further ingestion by either reporting tools like Power BI or you can also load it into a relational data store if you need to make a persistent storage of those artifacts in Azure SQL DB or dedicated SQL pool. Okay, so Serverless SQL pool endpoint is provided by default within every Azure Synapse workspace, and you can immediately start querying your data using either Synapse Studio or usual suspects, as I like to call them, SQL Server Management Studio and Azure Data Studio. So let me show you quickly how you can connect to a Serverless SQL endpoint from Synapse Studio and from SQL Server Management Studio. Let me just grab this here. I'm in my Synapse workspace, and here you can see that I have a Serverless SQL endpoint provided, this one. Okay, so you can use this Serverless SQL endpoint to connect from different client tools, like for example SQL Server Management Studio and Azure Data Studio. If we go to see, yeah, I'm already connected, but let me show you how you can do this. So for example, if you go here and choose to connect to a database engine, you just provide this Serverless SQL endpoint and of course your credentials for connecting to Azure Synapse workspace, and then you can start immediately querying data from your data lake storage. You can also do something like opening Synapse Studio directly from here, from your Synapse workspace. And let me show you in a few seconds how this works. It's quite simple. So basically, if you go to Data tab here on the left, and I have my SQL database, and I have my views. Let's go to this one with Parquet data. If I click on those three dots, I can immediately generate a new SQL script, and let's query top 100 rows. You see that Synapse Studio generated SQL automatically for us, and I will run this query now. And let's wait for a few seconds. So you can basically write your queries directly here in Synapse Studio and start querying your data. As you can see, we got our results back. So it's like you are querying a normal SQL Server database or SQL Server view. And you can also here do things like creating charts, stuff like that. Through linked services, you can connect to different services provided by Azure. For example, one of them is Power BI, so you can connect directly from Synapse Studio and deploy your reports to Power BI workspace. Okay, so fine. The key reason why we're all here today is to examine how to leverage usage of regular T-SQL syntax for querying data that is stored within data lake. So sooner rather than later, if you're working with Power BI and combining it with Serverless SQL pool, you will need to write some T-SQL to retrieve the data you need. Okay, so it's important to understand what options are available when using T-SQL in synergy with Power BI. So if we take a look at database objects, here is the list of objects you can create within Serverless SQL pool. The first and most important and one that you will use most frequently are views. You can also create multiple different schemas, same as stored procedures. Also, when it comes to user-defined functions, you can use inline table value functions. Additionally, you can create external tables, both regular tables and citas. Finally, you can create statistics on your data for increasing query performance, like in regular T-SQL server. Things that are currently not supported are tables, both permanent and temporary tables. There are some improvements in the field of support for temporary tables, but they still come with a lot of limitations. So just keep in mind that you can't use temporary tables like you were able to use in a regular SQL server. Okay, so the next feature that is not supported, and this is very important to keep in mind, is caching of query result sets. That means when you execute the query, engine will go and scan exactly the same amount of data. So no matter if you connect from your Power BI report to a Serverless SQL pool and refresh your result set once or 15 times for one single query, each time this query will generate exactly the same costs. Keep that in mind. And when I'm reading SQL related blogs or watching videos, you can hear stuff like when they are analyzing execution plans. So you will often hear something like, this query will cost you 100 query bucks. This query will cost you 500 query bucks. Here, forget about the query bucks. We are talking about real bucks, real money. So please, I before hitting F5 button for no obvious reason. Okay, so you probably already realized that serverless doesn't support any kind of data persistency in between data lake storage and query result set. Therefore, you can't create objects like materialized views, unlike in dedicated SQL pool where this kind of intermediate storage is possible. Finally, you can't rely on objects like indexes or table partitions. You can partition files using file path function, but that's a whole different story. Okay, so now let me walk you through what you can and can't do with T-SQL statements. Whole set of features, or let's say almost whole set of features for select statement is supported in Serverless SQL. You can also use explicit transactions on metadata objects and perform data export using CITAS statement. Apologies from my side, I already mentioned CITAS on the previous slide, but didn't explain what is this. So CITAS stands for create external table as select. If you're coming from traditional SQL world, you can think of it like select something into. So you're basically exporting data and persistently storing it in an external table. If you need to write cross database queries, that's also supported. Then also whole set of T-SQL built-in functions, except those three you see on your screen, Open XML, Open Data Source, and Open Query. Finally, data definition language statements are also available, so create, alter, and so on. You can write this in Serverless SQL. What you can't do, you can't use insert, update, and delete statements. You can't perform merge within your queries, and within select statement itself, there are few limitations, namely you can't use for XML match and predict functions, and also query hints are not supported. And finally, you can't combine data coming from system views with data with distributed data. Okay, so far we discussed what is possible, in which scenarios you would consider using Serverless SQL pool, but we still haven't explained how to get the best from this engine, or what are the best practices for your data workloads once you decide to connect from your Power BI report to use a Serverless SQL pool. So let's start with a list of actions you should perform in order to maximize potential of Serverless SQL pool. First, default storage account and serverless endpoint are by default in the same region. However, if you are accessing other storage accounts or Cosmos DB analytic storage, try to place your Serverless SQL endpoint and Azure storage accounts that you are targeting in the same geographical region. That will reduce the latency for the data's network transfer. Next, this is important. If possible, convert your CSV and JSON files to Parquet format. Why? The reason is simple. Parquet format compresses the data, and this consequentially leads to a smaller memory footprint of these files when you compare them to CSV. Additionally, Parquet is a columnar format and in many ways resembles to column store indexes in relational databases. It also resembles to a Vertipack engine that works in behind Power BI and analysis services. So because of that, Serverless SQL engine can skip unnecessary columns when reading data from Parquet files, which is not the case with CSV. And this will directly affect not just time and resources needed for getting results back to your Power BI report, but it will also reduce the cost of the query. Next, built-in schema inference. This is a very cool feature that enables you to quickly query the data in the data lake without knowing underlying schemas and data types. However, as every handy feature, this one also comes with a cost, and the cost is that inferred data types are usually improper, much larger than the actual data types. For example, Parquet files don't contain metadata about maximum character column length, and inferred data type is always varchar 8000, which is far from optimal, of course. As I already mentioned, you can't partition the tables, but you can partition your files. That being said, you can instruct Serverless Sql to target only specific folders and files using file path and file name functions. Next, take advantage of using external tables, citas, whenever you can. This is one of the most important features in Serverless Sql. And using citas, you can identify most frequently run queries from your Power BI report. You can store those frequently used queries to a new Parquet file, and then use this single external table as a source for your Power BI report instead of referencing same underlying table multiple times. So it's not a materialized view as we used to know in a regular database, but it's still some kind of materialization. And this materialization happens within the Parquet file that is stored in the data lake. On top of that, as citas generates Parquet file, you will get statistics automatically created when you query this table for the first time. So basically you are gaining performance improvement for all subsequent queries that target this same external table. Every do, as you might expect, has its counterpart in don't. So here is the list of things you should try to avoid or at least reduce to a minimum. When you are running queries on Serverless Sql pool, carefully plan other workloads that target your storage account. Serverless Sql, as you already learned in the previous part, has this built-in capacity to resolve these kind of issues, as it will automatically scale and send requests to a data lake at slower pace, but that will obviously affect performance of your Power BI reports if you're using Serverless Sql pool as your data source. Next, avoid schema inference. I know that it sounds appealing to quickly get up and running without wasting time and effort to handle inferred data types, but please spend some time resolving inferred data types to appropriate ones, as you will reap the benefits later, I can assure you. So how do you check this? Let me show you quickly. Check data types. You can use this built-in procedure SP describe first result set, and you can see, for example, that vendor ID, which should be an integer data type, it's in varchar 8000. Also, all those ID columns are should be integer columns or big integer, whatever numeric type, but they are all varchar 8000. So you can you should spend some time here and change those inferred data types to appropriate ones. Please dedicate some time to do this. Next, get rid of single large files. Instead, if you have a large file, split it into multiple smaller files and then use file name and file path functions to reduce the amount of data that needs to be scanned and processed. With that in mind, try to keep your single CSV file size between 100 megabytes and 10 gigabytes. Okay, so here we are. Do you know where does this picture come from? Remember Jerry Maguire, one of my favorite movies. And there is a great scene when Cuba Gooding Jr. asks Tom Cruise to passionately scream on the phone, "Show me the money, show me the money." So remember this picture? Yeah, it's exactly what Microsoft will ask you to do. I'm kidding a little bit, but in the end, I know that, yeah, most of us are interested to hear how much using Serverless Sql in combo with Power BI will cost. And I don't blame you. That's why I intentionally left this topic for the later part of the session. So let's first examine what are you paying for when using Serverless Sql pool. If you go to Microsoft's official page, they boldly say that you will be charged for the amount of data processed. But let's dig deep and check what counts for the amount of data processed. The first thing is the amount of data being read. Here you should count data itself, but also related metadata for formats that contain metadata, like for example, Parquet format. Then amount of moved data. So what's this? When you run the query, if you remember this illustration with control node and execution nodes, when you run the query, it's being split into smaller chunks and sent to multiple compute nodes for execution. And while the query runs, your data is being transferred between those nodes. And this intermediate result is something you should be aware of. Same as data transfer to the endpoint, so to control node, in an uncompressed format. That's also important to keep in mind. In reality, this number will be different if you run something like select star from the file that contains 50 columns from the case when you are targeting and selecting only a few columns. Finally, amount of data written to data lake. This applies in those scenarios when you use CTAS, so create external tables, to export query results to a Parquet file that's going to be stored in a data lake. So when you sum up these three items, you are getting the total amount of data processed. Also, statistics, as in regular SQL databases, statistics help the engine to come up with the optimal execution plan. Statistics in Serverless Sql can be created both manually and automatically. And in both cases, there is a separate query running to return the column on which statistics is built on. And this query also has some amount of data processed. One important takeaway here is with Parquet files, when you create statistics, only the relevant column is read from the file. On the other hand, with CSV files, whole file needs to be read and parsed in order to create statistics even for a single column. That's another reason to think of using Parquet files instead of CSV files whenever possible. And going back to our original request for showing Microsoft the money, currently pricing starts from $5 for 1 terabyte of processed data. The exact price depends on the region, and you should definitely check how much would you be charged depending on where your data is. Also keep in mind that minimum chargeable amount per query is 10 megabytes. So even though you sometimes have a query that processed less than 10 megabytes of data, you will be charged as this minimum threshold was reached. Okay, so now let's go through the list of the items that goes on house, or if you prefer, that Microsoft will not charge you for. So what doesn't count as amount of data processed? Querying server level metadata, stuff like logins, roles, server level credentials, and so on. Then databases you create within your Serverless Sql endpoint, as these databases contain only metadata like users, schemas, views, external data sources like stuff like that. Let me show here. So I have my database, Nikola Synapse, and I have views. I have some external resources here already defined. So basically all this stuff I will not be charged for when creating this. Then metadata related queries, because they don't process data from the storage. And finally, data definition language statements such as create or alter, except create statistics, which I already explained how the way it works in Serverless Sql. Okay, so the first and most important feature when we are talking about constant control is that you can set the maximum threshold for the amount of data processed. The number you define is in terabytes, just to be aware, and you can define the maximum amount of data processed on daily, weekly, and monthly level. How it's done? You can do this either through user interface in Synapse Studio or executing T-SQL statements in your tool of choice. I still prefer SQL Server Management Studio to Azure Data Studio, so let me show you now how it's done both from Synapse Studio and from SQL Server Management Studio. Let's do first from Synapse Studio. If you go to Manage, here on the left, so here, if I go to Manage, and you can see that I have this built-in serverless pool provided. When you hover over this built-in, you'll see the small, let me zoom it a little, you see small money icon here. And if I click on it, on the right-hand side, there is a pop-up window where I can define, where I can see how much data was processed today, this week, and this month, and I can set a different limits on a daily level, on a weekly level, and monthly level. So you see that it's now 1, 2, and 50. I won't change anything, never mind. Let's go to SQL Server Management Studio, and here I can check the current setup. And as you may see, we see that daily limit is 1, the week limit is 2, and monthly limit is 50, like we saw previously in Synapse Studio. Now let's check, for example, monthly limit to something like 30. So you can use this SP set data process limit and provide as a parameters for type, you provide the frequency, so the daily, weekly, or monthly, and then you provide a limit in terabytes. So I put 30 now, and if we go back and check in my configurations how it looks like now it's 30. So you can also change your limits here. Also, very cool thing is that you can check the current amount of data that you processed. So if you query this system view DM external data processed, I will run it now, and you can see that today we processed 4.3 gigabytes. Yeah, this number is in megabytes. I converted here to gigabytes, and here is to terabytes. And here I am calculating how much it will cost. So show me the money. And as you may see, for you, this session is free. For me, it's not. I will pay in the end this amount to Microsoft. Joking a little bit, this is just a trivial amount, but you can quickly see the current situation and how much did you spend in the specific time frame. That's very useful. Okay, going back to our presentation, and as the session is called Power BI and Synapse Analytics, so how they work in synergy, here is the scenario that I've used for testing how those products work in combination. I'm using an open sourced yellow cab dataset. I already mentioned it previously, which has around 1.5 billion rows in total. You heard it well, billion, not million, billion rows. But I've extracted only small portion of data. So basically I have two CSV files, one for each month of January and February 2019. January file is around 655 megabytes, and February 620 megabytes large. And they also have two Parquet files containing exactly the same data. So January Parquet is 256 and February is 243 megabytes. Both files contains around 7 point something million rows. Yeah, so we will compare here. I want to give you a disclaimer. I haven't compared performance between CSV and Parquet files when Power BI connects to them, only costs. So how much would you pay for each of these different scenarios? And unfortunately, we don't have time to go live through the demo, as it will take a lot of time for connecting first to CSV and then to Parquet files. But here I compressed the most interesting insights that I got querying CSV and Parquet, and here is the table which shows various use cases for both CSV and Parquet files with estimated costs in US dollars and short remark about the use case. In short, for CSV files, there is no difference between using regular versus aggregated tables, as in both scenarios, the whole file, the whole CSV file was scanned. When you compare import versus direct query mode scenario with CSV files, when you are importing the data into tabular model of Power BI, you will be charged number of times that matches the number of your data refreshes. So if you refresh the data once per day, you will pay only once for the amount of data processed. If you refresh it 10 times, you will pay 10 times. On the other hand, with direct query mode in place, the key thing to keep in mind is number of visuals and number of users that interact with the report, as that will directly affect the costs of your Power BI solution. As you probably know, with direct query, each time you interact with the visual, query will be sent to an underlying data source, in this case, Serverless Sql, and each time you will need to pay for this generated query. Simply said, stay away from direct query whenever possible. The only edge case is if you pre-aggregate data within the Serverless SQL pool, so not in Power BI, but in Serverless SQL pool, but it has impact on extremely large data sets because the lower amount of streamed data, so this data that goes between the nodes, can have an impact on the total amount of processed data. It's a whole different story for Parquet files, as pre-aggregating data in the Serverless SQL pool would do the real magic. Don't forget, Parquet keeps the data in a columnar structure, so when you run the query from Power BI, engine is capable to eliminate scanning of unnecessary columns. So it will go and retrieve only those columns that you need. Here is the list of considerations you should keep in mind when you're creating Power BI solutions that use Synapse Serverless SQL pool as a data source. First, no matter what you perform within the Serverless SQL pool on top of the CSV files, so we are talking about CSV files, they will be fully scanned at the lowest level of the data preparation process. Keep that in mind. This brings us to another takeaway. So whenever possible, use Parquet files instead of CSV. Also, this is a general recommendation for Power BI, but it also relates to when Power BI is being used in synergy with Synapse Serverless. Whenever possible, use import mode, import the data into Power BI. That means you will pay only when the data snapshot is being refreshed, not for every single query within the report. If you're dealing with Parquet files, try to create pre-aggregated data in the views in the Serverless SQL pool in the Synapse. As I told you, this will do the magic, and this will significantly reduce the cost for the query. Also, since Serverless SQL pool still doesn't support result set cache, keep in mind that each time you run the query, even if you're returning the same result set in your Power BI report, the query will be generated and you will need to pay for it. Keep that in mind. Finally, if your analytic workloads require a high number of queries over a large data set, and when I say large, I mean so large that import mode is simply not an option, maybe you should consider storing data in the dedicated SQL pool, as in that case, you will pay fixed storage costs instead of data processing costs each time you query the data. Here, in order to additionally benefit from using this scenario, you should materialize intermediate results in Serverless SQL pool using external tables before importing them into a dedicated SQL pool. That way, your queries will read already prepared data instead of raw data. Okay, that was it from my side. Looking forward to hearing questions if there are any, and hopefully we will have enough time to answer all of them, and hopefully I will know the answer to the questions.
Hey, hi Nikola, this is Nilesh. One question from my side. What is the difference between CSV and Predicate file? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? And which one is better for the business perspective things?
Yeah, generally speaking, Parquet file is much better for the analytic workloads because it's more optimal compressed than CSV. So the CSV file that takes, for example, I don't know, 1 GB of memory, this same Parquet file with the same data will take, for example, 300 MB. So it's 1 to 3 compression rate better in Parquet files. That's the first advantage. So a lower memory consumption. Second big advantage for analytic workloads is that Parquet stores data in a columnar structure. So basically each column is physically stored separately from the others. So if you need in Parquet file, if you have like 40 columns and you need only 5 of them, when you run this query, engine is smart enough to pull only those 4 columns from Parquet file. So it will not scan those remaining 36 or whatever. While for CSV files, it needs to scan the whole file every time. So even if you need 3 columns, it will scan the whole file. So the idea is to use Parquet file whenever possible. Those are the 2 main advantages of Parquet file over CSV.
Thank you, Nikai.
You're welcome.
Nice. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks much, Nikola. Dhruvin, any questions from the YouTube stream?
No, Abhinav, no question from YouTube live. Only one question was there, but it is not related to the session. It is something like someone has asked like how to get Power BI report output with filter into CSV in every 5 minutes. That is the question. I believe it's not in the context of this one. So apart from that, there is no other question in the chat window at this moment.
What was the question? Sorry, I didn't understand how to.
Yes, let me repeat the question. How to get Power BI report output with filter into CSV in every 5 minutes of interval?
So it looks
Yeah.
like the user wants to push data to
CSV from Power BI to CSV, if I
Yes,
understood.
exactly. Yes, correct.
As far I don't know. I really don't know
Same,
if that's
because
possible.
yeah, actually it's something like with the Power Automate integration, you can do some sort of exporting into CSV. But at this moment, as far as I know, it's not support scheduling. Like every 5 minute interval, that is something which is not supported at this moment. But I need to check on that part as well. But if you have a limited number of data, like less than 1000 rows, then you can go with that approach, Power Automate button approach, and you can filter out your data and you can export into CSV. But it is on button click, not on the scheduling basis. But let me double verify on that part on scheduling, how it is possible or not.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
Thanks. All right. So I think apart from that, no other question. If from audience, if anyone has any question, feel free to unmute yourself and ask question to Nikola directly.
Sure. And if someone remembers question later, drop me a message on Twitter or LinkedIn.
Sure, sure. All right.
Yeah, Nikola is quite active on LinkedIn and Twitter.
Yes.
Nikola will answer within less than 24 hours.
Yes, actually, Prince is saying like Nikola is more active on social media. So if anyone has any question,
Yeah,
feel
feel free, of course.
Yes, and obviously, Nikola, your blogs are something which is always serving us, great things related specifically for Power BI. So yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, if there are no questions, before I wish you a nice rest of the meeting and enjoy Hasham's session. Once again, thank you. Thanks to organizers for giving me a chance to be a part of today's event, and to all who attended the session. Hopefully, you get a better understanding how Power BI and Serverless SQL pool will work in synergy.
Definitely, Nicola. And Hasham is saying like we are waiting for your Sunday vlog as usual. So yeah.
Okay. Okay, then I hand it over to you guys, and yeah, thank you once again.
Thank you so much, Nicola, for a wonderful session in this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thanks, Nicola.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Ciao.
Hi guys.
Thanks, Nicola.
Hey guys. I think it's time to introduce the new legendary speaker, Hasham bhai. Hasham bhai, we have been inviting him for so many sessions. Now he will start saying that you guys are we are poking him so much. So, guys, just to give a brief introduction of Hasham. Hasham is a community leader across a PAC region, and he has been doing the great work in community, helping everyone of us learn something new every day. And the way he presents his task is absolutely in a wonderful state where anyone from a junior person to a very senior guy can understand the basics as well as the as overall concept in a sense. So Hashim bhai, all the floor is yours. So now we leave it all the audience in your hands, in your able hands, and then let's see. Let's learn guys today how to build a dashboard in an hour, and let's see, and then we can post questions to Hashim, and then he can answer it. Over to you, Hashim bhai.
Okay, thanks everyone. Thanks for your kind words, Prince. I would like to mention that you guys are doing really wonderful job here, leading the community, and I saw you guys are doing initiating different user groups throughout India and APAC region as well. So I always support all the community work. Let me know if you guys can see my screen. Can you guys see PowerPoint slide decks?
Hashim, we see your team side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think today they have provided some update. So, okay. So maybe now.
Yes, we can.
Yes, you can see it now.
Yeah. So our today's session will try to build a dashboard within an hour, and we will try to do some basic stuff where intermediate to someone who just joining in and he wants to see how Power BI works, how different functionalities work in Power BI, how they can actually render a report, design a report, and they do simple DEX things as well. So we'll not try to complicate today's session too much. We'll try to keep it very simple. So hopefully this will be like episodes you can have in the user group where different speakers can come in and they can actually increase the level up. So today's our inaugural session. So what we'll try to do is like we will try to have these 4 exercises in our 60 minutes. Each exercise is time around 15 to 20 minutes, and hopefully we can finish it up by 60-minute mark. A brief introduction. I think Prince already gave a very detailed introduction. So I have won several awards in Power BI, and I've been doing a lot of training, custom training, consultancies, and I've been speaking at Power BI events as well. Other than that, we have been organizing a lot of Power BI events as well. If you guys want to check, you can check out my LinkedIn profile, and you'll find all the latest events we are organizing. So these are some of the session objectives. What we are going to do, we are going to do some data loading, data modeling, data quality thing, and then we have exercise to create a measure which shows us number of sales, number of orders, and then we try to add some images to our report to look at more beautify, and then we will have something called product line. We create a measure called average sales by product line, average sales by percentage increase year over year. So we will do that in third exercise, and then we'll try to wrap up this report, what we have developed, and try to publish it on the web. So this is if anyone wants to download the Power BI desktop tool, which we'll be using today. So this is the URL. You can download Power BI desktop latest version. I am using October 2021 release. So you can download it. This is a free software. You can download it. And the sample data is available on this below URL. So what the final output, what we are looking at. So this is going to be a final output, which we are today targeting. So we have this sales dashboard, which is going to show us sales data for different cities in UAE. So I have put up a data set. So let me show the data set here. So I have this data set, and this has like every year or every week or every month you can actually have this data. So let's open a sample file how this data set looks like. So this is my data set. It has invoice number, branch ID, country, city code, customer type, gender, and different things as well. So these are some of the things, the KPIs which we want to actually calculate or measure is like quantity, and we are interested in sales. So these are 2 of the KPIs which we'll be using, and all the other are attributes like product line, gender, female. So we will have this one. Now let's moving to the part exercise 1. Let's see it for now. So first step is to prepare the data. So I will start with the blank sheet and we'll now move on. So this is file. This is our final file, which will look like. So I have opened a blank file. Currently, it does not have any data. It does not have anything in it. So how we will start it? We will start it by simple. I have this one Excel data loaded here in this location. So I will try to use this data from the folder location. Many people, if you are doing with the production environment, you can use it either from SharePoint Online, you can use it from any directory, any server location. So currently, if you are doing on a basic scale, so I try to keep it as simple. So I'm using a folder connection here, and I'm trying to connect a folder where I host all my Excel files. So this is the location where all my Excel files are placed. One thing you need to make sure that all the schema available in this file should be same. All the files should share the same schema. By schema, I mean the column headers or the structure of the Excel file. Now let's try to build a connection. It will ask you like which file do you want to connect. So I will say, okay, select file. And I will say, okay, combine and transform. So all the files will be combined and I will do the transformation later on. So it will take around few seconds, 30 to 60 seconds, depending on the machine which you are using or the configuration. So Power BI will actually load all the data. So as you can see, now all the data is in there. So I can see all the different files. They have been loaded here as well. So I will say this is my sales data. So I will say this is my sales data set. Let's try to close and apply. So this will be actually saved. So now I have this data here saved. It is doing some auto calculations, thing like that, trying to finding some relationship if there are some relationship as well. So currently we only have one table. All the data has been loaded without any data quality. So now to check some data quality issues we will run into. So let's try to pull something called, let's try to bring here something like sales. So when I drag and drop the sales here, measure sales, so it create implicit measure. So it's showing me that my sales is 4.37 million, right? So currently we are doing with this 4.37 million sales. If I want to filter it, slices, dice. So I have a column here called date. So let's see what this column brings. So these are different dates where I have sales. So let's try to filter like, okay, we have this one. I'm not sure like if this is a right column. So because this has some null values as well. So to do that, create a relationship between or be able to slice and dice based on your dates, sales dates, because we want to see like how much sales we are making each year, each month, each week. So to in order to do that, we need to have a calendar dimension or a date dimension. So I will create a calendar dimension using a very simple method, which is called calendar function. So I will go here in the modeling tab. I will create a new table and I will create a table through DAX. So this is the easiest way. You can create a calendar dimension in the Power Query. Power Query, I will just show you again what I mean by Power Query. So I have this table available here. So I have used a function called calendar, and I said, okay, my start date is, it has two parameters, start date and end date. So I'm providing the start is at January 01, 2018, and then my end date is 31st December 2022. So the format is year, YYY, MM, and then DD. So this is the format how you provide it. Okay, if you don't like this format, you can create a date table using calendar auto function. So I would say, okay, I need to create a So I need to create a date dimension or calendar dimension. So I can use the calendar auto function as well. For this function, you don't need to provide any argument. Like you don't need to provide start and end date. What it does, it will automatically generates a date dimension based on your minimum and maximum date available in your data model. So I would avoid that because some of my sales attributes have those garbage values where they either have null or 1880, something like that, dates going back to that day. So I want to explicitly define a range where I have this thing available, right? So once I click this OK, you can see a table is created and you can see the mode of this table as well. So all these tables are like in import mode, it's showing the storage mode as well. So there are two different methods. So first step is like always save the file. Whatever you are working on, make sure you save it. So I will try to save it here like 23. So now we have saved this file, right? Currently, we haven't done anything on it. So you see this sales hasn't been changed yet. So how do we interact? Like, OK, let's drag and drop this one here and change this to a slicer. So I can see these are different years. So if I want to say, OK, 2019, if I select this, nothing is happening, right? So how do we make it interactive? How do we want to slice and dice? So what I can go to the model tab and I will try to create a relationship between those tables so I can slice and dice based on my calendar dimension. Okay, calendar dimension is a common dimension. In each of the data warehousing project you will be working, you'll need to have a calendar dimension because you'll need to slice and dice based on your time periods, things like that. Okay, so I have this date column here and I will try to have one-to-many relationship and always make sure you set the cross filter direction to single. Don't use both unless you are aware what you're doing. It will first it will slow down your performance, model performance, and then it will not provide you correct results. Any question till this point? We can take a question in between. So once I do create this relationship, you can see now I have my fact table here. I can maybe align this as like this, something like that. So this is my fact table, sales, and then this is my dimension table. Now I go back and so once you see, I can filter these out. So I am seeing some problem. Like whenever I click anything, everything is coming as blank. Okay. So what I need to do, I think I need to fix some data quality issues because my join is not working. So if you remember our first exercise not only includes to load data, it actually requires us to clean data as well. So if you want to go and transform some data cleaning, you go to the home tab and you click on transform data, click here. And you can see there are different things which can help you. So I will come here in the view tab and I will say I need to check column distribution and column quality. So here, when I click column quality, so I can say, OK, the number of valid rows, number of error or empty rows. So I need to find out the number of empty rows here in my data model. So if you can see, it's saying that all these values are fine. All these values are valid, but I can see that these are all the null values. And you can do the column profiling. Currently, it is showing it column profiling is based on top 1000 rows, but I want to turn this to entire data set so I can have a clear picture. So if you can see, there are like 28 distinct values. So I will try to find out, do I have any proper data set here? And I can say here any other column which I can see. So all these things are saying that, okay, these are all the valid values, but I need to have fixed this one issue with the date column. So how do I fix this date column issue? So I can actually find now with this one, I click date column and I will try to find out like, okay, I need to do a column profiling as well. And I can see what is my minimum date. So here I can only see the minimum date is only 2019. And I cannot see, like I have some sales for 2020 and for 2022, I have some sales like value distribution. So I can actually see like I have data between these years. How about if I put a filter here and I try to remove these files 2018 and 2022. If I remove, because I only find data in these three files. Once I do that, and again, I go to my date column. So you can see all my dates are appearing up here, and it's still showing it has some null values. So we'll try to find out how many. Yeah, okay, a greater part of the issue is like most of the values are still coming up as null. Okay, so now I will save this file for now. So once you do that, you can apply and you can go on to the visual tab. So I will come back here in my visual tab, and let's say I don't still have this issue. So now I need to go here and see what I'm doing wrong. Did I have date column here? And I can say that all my months are coming up as fine. So you can see here, this all the dates here are coming up as correct in my 2019 data set. But why this is not working? We need to find a way. So also I will open up this file called 2020. So I validate these all the files. So I have this data available up here. And then I will come here in my file called 2021. So data quality issues. So I can see I have this 5 months of worth of data, and I can go back and open 2022 file as well. So yes, all these files have this data. So now I think like, okay, I know that from Excel, my data set is coming up as fine. I don't have any issue with the data coming up in my Excel. Any question? What's the purpose of column profiling? Okay, column profile actually gives us the distribution of like if I here and I select, let me remove this column quality. So column profile, if I click on any of this column, so this will give me the distribution, value distribution, how my values are distributed. So if I click this one, I can quickly identify that, okay, I still have some major amount of data or some huge amount of data directly binded to null. So if you have some garbage data as well, and it is actually having all your, so I can see that, okay, this is my total rows, 14,367 rows, but I have this almost 4,000 rows or 27% of data actually goes into the null value. So with this, like I can identify those things. So I need to go back here and let's say I only load data for 2019 because this is the data I see as much valid in when I open the Excel file as well. So it was the much cleaner data. Still, this is coming up as null. So I'm not sure why. Let's go back and click close and apply for now. And maybe this will reload the data. And if I go back here, yes, I can only see 2019 file and I can see all the valids right here. Okay, so now I click on 2019. I think there is something wrong with the relationship, the way I set it up. So I need to go back here. Yes, So let's go back here and do one thing. The one thing which I recognize later is like if I click here on this file and I try to go transform data, my date column was appearing with the timestamp. So if you see here, this is when I go in my date column. This is either coming as a text, so I can, yes, see, so this is coming up as text. So while the calendar dimension I created, so I will change this to as dates. So now this is coming up at date column, right? So I have close and apply. So these are some of the things you need to remember when you are doing the debugging of the code. Like, okay, what is happening or what has been changed. So now I can see that this is like, okay, I want this to be a date hierarchy here. I remove all the other elements of the date hierarchy. Now I pick this one, 122. Okay, all the years are coming up as blank and only this one as coming up 122. Okay, now let's go back. Since we have data for year 2021 and 2022 as well, or maybe I have just dummy created this data. So I will try to enable these two files as well. Okay, I'm trying to load more. It's not. So I will. So if you want to go back into a particular step, I will just remove this one. I will just remove this one for now. And I will just remove this one for now as well. So it's now giving me all the valid files. So I can say, okay, I only need to remove these two files. I will say 2019, 2020, and 2021. So you can actually go back to the steps. I can go, I definitely go back here and then I change my date type and you can see that this is coming up as text. So it's coming up as text. If it's coming up as date, so it should have a calendar here right now. So I have changed this and let's save this file. And you can see it is again loading the data. So we do some of the debugging here. What happened? Let's go back here for a minute. Try to bring this up, this sales thing. And you can say why this is coming up as sales. Anyone knows why this was happening? So I think when I did here, all the aggregations have been removed from this one. So let's try to remove this one for now. And we have made some mistake here in the data set. So let's go back. When I was removing those things, I removed everything. So let's go back and do repeat the step one. So I will remove all those steps as well. And let's move this data sets as. So I'm removing this data set for now. And let me close and apply and see how it goes. So it goes fine. It does not have any issue as of now. So I will go back and I will try to reload the files. The basic problem with this is like why you can actually go, if you mess up with the steps, M steps, it's good that you just recreate those things. So I will say, okay, this is my path here. And somebody remind me how much time we spent on this exercise, like 20 minutes we have already spent?
Yes.
Okay, so I will need to speed up a bit. So I will say, okay, combine and load. And I will select the sales here. So you need to go to the Power Query window, select the files which you want in your production model. So I only want these 3 files. And then I want this column to be treated as date, not the text. So you can see this is coming as numeric, this is coming as numeric, this is coming as numeric as well. Actually, these are decimals. This is coming as a whole number. So I can change the data type of this column to the date. And once I can rename this one as sales, let's hope it will let me save this as sales as well. So I close and apply. This one. And we'll try to bring, now you see all those pre-aggregations are coming up here as well. So I can change this. So this is coming as 2.51 million, 2.51 million, because we don't have any relationship. We need to go back and reassign that relationship. Like this is based on date with this date and then one to many. Like, yeah, boom, we are done. So now I can see the sales for 2020, 2021. These both are the similar data set, so that's why you are seeing the same sales for both these years. Okay, otherwise it has not been showing. So with this, we have all the sales data available up here. We haven't created anything. So if you go back to the PowerPoint slide, so we have loaded the data, we have done some data modeling, and we have identified the data quality issues, reload the file, thing like that. We have almost completed exercise number 1. Now, second part where we are actually creating sales measure, number of order measure. Okay, so this is the part like where we explicitly create measures. So currently when you drag and drop anything and you say, I want to summarize this one, so you can use any of the default calculations here, like minimum, average, maximum, standard deviation, variance. So these, when we drag and drop and we don't write anything, this is called implicit measures. So I will try to create some explicit measures. So our first measure should be like number of sales. So I have this measure up here. And how I organize my measure is I will create a new table here from enter data this time, and I will name this table as underscore measures. And I will load this table up here, and I will organize all my measures in this table. And I can say right click on this new measure. I can click the highlight the table name and then right click and click new measure. Also, I can come to the home tab and I can click on new measure. And I can go into the modeling tab and click on new measure. There are 4 or 5 ways you can create a measure, whichever you like. I usually right click on the table name and create new measure. There is no performance benefit how you create a measure. So I will just validate my DAX, do some formatting thing, and I will say like, okay, I want this to be a 2 decimal, or I can maybe turn this to a whole number, whatever you like, you can turn this on. So this is my measure here. I place this measure up here, same in the card visual, and you can see both are returning the same results. So what is the advantage of using the explicit measure? Explicit measures allows us flexibility that we can extend those explicit measure, we can reuse those explicit measure into different measure definitions, and we can manage them easily. So if I want to change anything, I just change this measure. If the column name is changed, if the table name is changed, I can modify this measure and all the code will take itself. Otherwise, if I have changed something here, I need to go manually into each visual and then adjust. So I can get rid of this thing, this implicit measure thing. So I have created a sales measure. Now I want to create number of orders. So number of orders, there are different ways how you create the number of order measure. So in my example, I will create a number of order using count rows method. You can use distinct count as well, because in my data set, I have invoice ID which are distinct for each year. So I simply count rows, whatever the number of rows. If you want, you can use distinct count function as well, and you can distinct count the invoice IDs as well. So there are different methods. I would prefer to keep it simple, like count rows. It will provide me benefit of performance benefit over distinct count. So this will be a whole number because quantity whichever you are saving is definitely going to be a integer number. Okay, so I changed this one as well. So this is the number of orders. This is the number of order in 2021. This is the number of order in year 2019. So we have this one available. Now our third measure I will create here is average sales. Average sales or average basket size. All of you might be familiar, like usually in the retail business, everyone is cared about like what is the average basket size or how much sales we generate per customer. So you can see that when I created this measure is actually created inside the calendar table. So how you change from it this measure from calendar table to measure table? Do I need to recreate this measure? Do I need to delete this measure and then recreate it in this table? No, I don't. I just simply assign the table here. I click on the measure tools and then I assign this from calendar table to measure table. And you can see this measure has been moved from one table to another. And also you can hide this column because this column one we don't need to use. So we can hide this column here. So this column is not visible to our end user. So I can place this one as well. And so this is my average size. So what this average size is doing, like this is actually calculating the number of sales and divide by number of orders. So this is in dollars, USD dollar or AED dirhams, whichever the currency unit you are using. Other way around is like other people use average as like I can show you the example here. So most people you will find using average sales order and they will do it like this average and they say average of sales, which is kind of correct. So I will say kind of correct. I use this word. So let's see what is the difference between these two. So I have created this measure as well. I can place this one up here. And so these both are showing the same result. So I will just leave these two measures here side by side and I will show you the difference between the later exercise. Okay. So always prefer to calculate using the divide. I will just give you an example later on in the other exercise. So with this, if we go back to our exercise, what it does, it shows us to create sales order and average sales measure we have already created up here as well. So then we need to go back and see what the exercise 3 is. Exercise 3 is sales by product line. So I need to create a chart where I can see average sales by product line or percentage sales over year increase. And I need to create a visual. Now see here we have two different things. So I need to create a visual to show sales and orders by city. That is one thing. And I need to create a visual to show average sales and percentage year increase by product line. So I will create those two things without any hassle. So now I will just remove all those things from here. And now from this part, I think we have almost covered 30 minutes. So now our rest of the 30 minutes will be more focused towards the visualization, how we visualize. So these are some of the measures we have created. We will create some more measures here as well. I will just place this on the side. Let's say our first one is to create the number of sales. So how about if I plot this one up here and keep in mind that we are looking for something like that. So you can see this is my sales, this is my year sales, this is my sales by product line. So if I have this image in my mind and I want to create something like this, so how do I go about it? So I will simply say, okay, good. I have this base image in my mind. I will just try to align some things here. And I will say this is my series line chart. And I will say now I want to plot this line chart based on months. Okay, so you can see all the months are there. Is it all the months are there? Now going back, is it looking close enough to this thing? I say no, this is not close enough. So how do we actually align these things? So it can be actually the similar thing. So to do this, let's save this file. I will go to the view. I will try to adjust some of the theming part. So I will customize this current theme. And I say, okay, this is my current theme. I want my first and second level element to use the dark black, jet black color. And I would say my general text size should be 14, title should be 16, cards and KPI should be 22, tab headers fine, visual headers. I will go up here, turn on the borders and turn on the radius. So I have done this smaller thing. I will leave all other properties as default. So I have this one available up here. Now I go in this chart and I say that, okay, I don't want this title. Which title? The axis title. So because everyone knows like, okay, Jan, Feb, March, what these are the months name. So I don't want the month to be written up here. And if I provide the title up here in my chart, I don't need to provide sales here on the y-axis. So I will turn off this title as well, the y-axis title. So I have some more space. Now, how about this? I can relabel this title to called only sales because this is the sales. And I can actually, I like this thing, like now Microsoft has provided this title heading, like which level of title heading I want to use, like first level, second level, or third level. So I like this idea. This is, I think, a recent development. So I will use this. Okay. So now you can see is there any way to show default selected as current year and month? Yes, there is a way. I will just showcase you in a bit. If I have enough time, I can showcase you how you create a default, like always filter out your default year and default month. Yeah, I can show you it at the end. Okay, give me a second. Let me turn on this thing called my charger, laptop charger. Just give me a second. And here we go. The charger is on, so I'm no more worried about the battery life here. Okay, so now we have this thing, and this is like if we showcase, okay, now this is close enough. So how do I make it more similar? So I still think that, okay, if we turn on the data labels, now we got close enough. If we have this thing called adjust something to maybe 230 starting X point, 110 or 300 width, and height is 18 to 20. So I have these things available. I think the size which I did, which I entered in my customization is too big. So maybe I can adjust the sizing. The normal sizing should be 12 and the title should be 14 by default. Okay, so I just changed these two things here just so they both can align. And I need to adjust maybe the width as well here. So the width should 360 maybe. Okay, so this is like more of a thing what we have looked up in our. So I have created this chart for January, February, and everything like this. Also, what I can do is maybe I can hide this one up here. So I have more space. And when I hover over, I can see this is Jan, this is Feb, this is March. And similarly, you can actually Okay, so I like this size. I'm fine with this size. If I can go back in my sheet, I can say, okay, what we have used up here in our final production, so it's like 420, 120. Okay, I can go by this one as well. So almost same width, 420, and then maybe I don't like 120. 120 is like very small enough, so I can say, okay, 140. So it's become more readable. So I have placed this up here, and I simply copy paste this one, and I will say, okay, let's place up here at this point. You can always adjust things later on, save this file. So we need to create something called percentage year over year increase or month over month increase. So how do we create that measure? So there are different ways you can try to DEX. I want to show you a different way, like, okay, I can create a quick measure. Clicking on the home tab, you go click quick measure, or you can right click on this table and you can use quick measure. So I've used this today. I try to create this way, like create a quick measure, and I will say year over year change. And here I'm putting up the base value. The base value is sales. So, or maybe you can use this one, sales, because you already have a measure, sales measure, which you have created, and then you can provide this, the date dimension, right? So I think Microsoft has done a lot of change in this recent quick measure thing as well. The layout is different. And you can see the measure is created as well, which is called year over year sales. Right, it creates the measure. So now let's try to debug this measure. What it is doing, it is actually creating a previous year sales here. And how it can create the previous year sales, it's utilizing my sales measure, which I have already created. And then it is going back 1 year in time and try to calculate the sales for this previous year. And then what it is doing, year over year increase, is like my current year sales minus previous year sales divided by previous year sales. So this is how it's creating. And if you see this again, this measure is created in the calendar table. So I will need to move this from calendar to measure table. Okay. So once I have done that, I can come here, I can change this to sales year over year. So you can see all my sales year over year increase is up here. I don't like the layout, how this is rendering, because you see, if I was here, it was coming up very nicely. So how do I need to make it the same way? So I can maybe click on this one, this thing, and I can say remove the elements where, okay, let's go back and I will use this. Okay, we'll just handle it out in a bit. So I have created this one for now. So we have sales year over year increase. I will go here, adjust the title of this chart. This title should be sales percentage year over year. Okay. How much time do we have? We have still 20 minutes left.
Yes, Hasham, you can take your enough time because after that we don't have any other session.
Okay.
And people are also enjoying the session and asking so many questions. So yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, so why the question I read in the chat was like, why I create a separate measure? So because we are actually doing it a very basic thing, but if you are working on an enterprise where you need to create almost 50, 45 measure or 70 measures, or somewhere you either need to create more than 100 measures. So how you align all those things? So first step is I have created the measure and I align all those, but even 50 here is not going to work. Like I need to find all the measure here. So how do I align? I go here and then I say, I select a measure and I simply say which display folder I want this to go. So I will say, okay, all these sales related measure will go into the sales thing, sales folder, and all the order related things will go into order related. So I will say this is orders, And this again will go into the sales measure. If somebody is like they don't like it here, they can actually say, okay, I want this to be average sales. Okay, so you have these folders created up here as well. So you can see these measures are, and if you want to align this one, you can see all of this is there. If you go back, now you see you have a table called measures and you have these subfolders kind of thing, and you can create as many as level in the subfolders as well to align. So if I want to find any measure, I can just simply say, okay, this is like more kind of a thing where I aligned all my code, all my decks. So I need to find any measure. I know, okay, this is the table where I need to look, rather than looking if I have 15, 20 tables, rather than searching up here and trying to find out like, okay, where it goes. So I know like I need to find here and which folder I have aligned it. So this is one thing. Now let's go to some beautification thing as well. So I will say, okay, I don't like this slicer header. I usually don't have slicer headers in my reports. I usually prefer the title thing to be shown up here, and title should be year. And I can make this same size, so it actually aligns with all my report theming as well. So I will say, okay, this is my year, and I will set up the font color and background color. So I have done that. Also, there is one, someone might need to ask that what is the, so I go back here, I turn this to this thing called dropdown, and then I turn it back. And usually I say, okay, this is my default here, so I will have this one up here. Okay, for now, just for the demonstration purpose. So let's save this one and let's copy paste this one. Now I want the other filter to be here as well, which is going to be my month filter. And to have this month filter, like I can go back, change it to date hierarchy, and then I will come back and change again to a date hierarchy. I remove all the other labels, and this time I will say like selection order, and I want this to be a list, and then I turn this off, and I can say, okay, all my months are up here. Okay, so what is the difference between using a dropdown and the list values? So if you have finite number of values, like we have 5 to 10 values or 20 values, and you want it to be filtered up right away. So what the advantage I am having up here using it in the dropdown. So if I have many labels, like if I have low, this attribute is coming up as 20,000 values. So always use dropdown. So it does not load all the values. It will show only a few values in your dropdown, and it will not try to go back and try to fetch all the data. But if you are using the list in your slicer and you have those 20,000 values, it will take up consume all the time to load those values in the data models and slow down your report loading time. So that's a smaller thing. You just need to have this in mind when developing a report. Okay, let's adjust some height and width here as well. So I'll say, okay, start position is 10, Y position is 120, maybe something like that. And then width is 160, which is fine with me. It's 100, height is 100. Okay, so I have this one 120. This is going to be, I need to adjust this one as well. And the 160 is the width which I set, and height is going to be, I will say 340. Okay, so I have adjusted these two things here, and now we can actually look into our charts thing here. So if I click here, I say this was 160, and I will start at point called 170 or maybe 180. Positioning is 120, everything else remains the same. Or maybe we can include some of the width, because today we I want to have some more width on my charts, just like that. And then I will do the same here as well. So Y position is 180. I'm just trying to adjust some sizing bits. And to get this here, we have 120 plus 140, that's 270. So I will say 270 is my starting point, and 600. So I have done those things. Okay, fine. Now moving to the point where we have this product line thing. Exercise 3 asks us to have a visual shows sales and percentage year over year increase in sales by product line. So it is actually specifically talking about this chart. So how do we create this chart? Simple enough. We go here and we plot this. We have a product line column up here. Place it up here, product line. And what we need to have a sales. So I have the sales column here, and let's say we want the sales. So currently this is coming up as a tabular. What I can do, I can actually change this to a matrix. I will just show you a flavor, different flavor here today. So I change this up here as a matrix, and then I will have multiple values, sales over increase and sales. And what I'm going to do here is let's adjust some of the height. I guess height is 420. And then width is fine. Maybe I can increase the height. So I don't have the scroll down here, maybe 240. We have space, right? So I did this. So this does not look very good. So definitely we need to work it on. So what kind of thing we can work it on? Like I can go here on the style, and I say I don't want to apply any style. Okay, this is the first thing I would do. And then I would say this thing called column headers. I don't need to do anything with the column headers. Grid, I think I can increase the row padding. So it will have some more spacing between. So if you have enough space, you can turn this to 10. But since I don't have that much space here, so I will just leave it as 5. But this gives me more readability. So if I can show you here, so now this is more readable. And then what I need to do here is maybe I can come up and say, how do I match this line? So I will have this column headers here, and I will say, okay, my column headers should be white, background should be blue. That's good enough that we are matching it up. And I can increase this size just to make sure like we have enough space up here. And then just hold on a second. I want to do some conditional, sorry, not conditional formatting. I want to do some field formatting here. So let's say my measure up here is sales, which I want to display unit. I say only display me thousands. So it's become more readable. And I can say apply this to a total as well. So if you want to apply this 1000 as well for the certain. Okay, now go back to conditional formatting. I can turn on the data bars. And maybe you can come here and sort this one. Sort by sales. So I always have the higher number of sales available up at the top. So I have this thing available. And one thing which I want to do is like, I have done this one. So which is fine. I'm not going for this type of chart here. I'm actually trying to show you a different thing here today. So we have this thing called sales, which is fine. If you want to apply any other formatting thing, you can use that as well. So if you want to apply some icon kind of thing, you can use. And for year over year sales, I say I don't want the data bars. I want the icons. And the icons should be like, I want this to be based on rules. So there are two ways. You can either apply based on field or rules. So I'm applying based on rules. So I say my first rule is if, and never use this %, use the number. Okay, so I say if my value is greater than equal to 0, here I will say minus 1, because I'm always going to be between -1 and plus 100, because I'm doing a percentage thing here. So I say it's between this and 0.03, like the increase is 33%. So I'll say as red, and you can actually have the different kinds of this thing as well. You can select this one, you can select for this, okay, and you can select this code, okay. So and then I can say, okay, this is 0.33, and key point is to remember that don't use the %1. This is still a buggy feature as far as I remember with the last, even with the last update. So go here, do the number thing, and then you can simply say 100, maybe, fine. So okay, so you can align the where do you want your title should be, something like this, or maybe I can simply say select. If I select these 3, this should be fine for me. Again, I need to go back and do this stuff called, I need to adjust those to number. I think we have some question. You can unmute Dhruvin if you are.
Sure. Actually, one question is from YouTube Live, Hasham, is
Yes.
About the conditional formatting.
Yes.
Can we add conditional formatting based on the another column's value, like not on the column that we are
Yes.
applying, but based on the another?
Yes. Yes, we can based on it.
All right. Thank you so much.
So if I want to create based on another column, like if this is a measure, I can select this measure to be a sales measure. I can choose another measure. Also, if you want to do based on fields, then you have to choose a field value from here. Okay. So
All
once I do that, and you see all of those are coming up as decline, which is a surprise for me. So I will just try to say, okay, we don't have any values. We don't have any values, because 0% increase, which is kind of if I do it like this, and maybe let's try to only have so I can maybe, okay, why this was not working was, you can see this is actually changing. So you can see that I have this much increase. Okay. So now I save this file. I still have some spaces up here which I want to apply. I would say this is my sales dashboard, so I'll put a simple title. You can use the title or kind of layer thing as well. So I would say I want this text box, maybe not here. I want this to be on the top. 160, and then height should be 140. We can adjust. It's not let. So I say this is my, okay, this is my sales dashboard, and I can highlight this one, just increase some of the sizing, maybe this like this, arrange it a bit. Maybe if I want to do it a bold, I can click on bold. Let's see if 18. So one key point is like, don't use too much of the sizing, different sizing, because you can say it like, so I have changes to, here I can actually say this, right? So just keep only 2 sizing, one for your labels, text, everything else, and then one for the titles. So I have used limit myself to using maybe 2 or 3 different sizes. Okay, now I want the city. So you can see this one here. I have this city sales up here as well. So how I'm not looking for this one today. So if I drag and drop this one here, city, and I say, okay, city, I want this to be a table, something like this. And then I say, no, I want this to be a visual. So I have to be a slicer. And now I go here in my slicer control and I can, sorry, in the journal. And this time, rather than having this to a vertical orientation, I change this to a horizontal orientation. And I can actually adjust the sizing as well. So I say, okay, this is my 170 or 180, whatever my start is. Sometimes I'm curious about, like, some people are very curious about what size you are using, and I say this is my 600, right? So I have this one appearing up here as well. How about if I turn the selection header and I turn on the title, seem like I turn on the title for others as well, and I say this is my city, and I will say I want to change the same kind of, apply the same kind of appeal here, and I think, and I forgot to align this as the middle. Okay. So now if I save this one and I click on Abu Dhabi, this is based on Abu Dhabi, this is based on Dubai, this is based on Sharjah. Yeah, and you can see this conditional formatting icon are working as well. Just give me a second. Sorry, I was having a cough, a really bad cold. So I have saved this one. Now let's try to add some more flavor to this thing as well. And to do this, what I will do, I will create 2 more charts quickly, and then we will try to wrap it up. I will rename this label as sales today, and I will create a button here. I say I create a blank button, and I will put this location as text, maybe 500 or 640. Width is 160. Height is 60. Okay, so I just do a filter here, and I think you asked about the reset. Okay, I will show you how to reset. So I don't want the outline. I don't want the icon. I want the border to be there. Okay, fine with these things. And then I say, okay, I want this to be a fill, and the fill color should be 50 and transparency is 0. Okay, so I have this as the same color, and then I can on the text, turn on the text, and I say the text should be reset filters, and it should align with what I have already done. So I can say this font color should be white. So, and the size should be at least 20 or maybe 16 is enough. Okay, so I say this is 16. Only thing I missed here is they don't have a option for making it bold. So I have done this text filter as well. Now I click on, if I go back here in my exercise, my last exercise is to develop a slicer panel, hide and reset slicer bookmarks and configure the bookmarks as well. So I'm just on to the last part. So if you want to have a default measure up here, like I have selected nothing, and my current year is, I want my default to be set as 2020, and I want the default selection to have these 5 months to be selected: January, February, March, April. Okay, May. So if I want these to be a default selection, I go here in my view tab, and then I say give me the bookmark pen, and I click this and I say this is my default state or reset state. So I say this is my default state. So you can have default state, or maybe let's move this to default. Okay, I have this one default available up here. Now I click on my button and I go to the actions and I say this button is going to be a feature of bookmark, like it will using a bookmark feature. And when I click on this, this will go to bookmark. If I want to turn on the tooltip, I can turn on the tooltip as well. And I can say this button will actually do reset filters. So when I hover, it will show me reset filters as well. Okay, so let's try to have save this one for now. And let's try to check the bookmark functionality. So now I have nothing selected. When I click on bookmark and I say, OK, view me the bookmark. So you can see this is the default selection up here. If I again deselect everything, I select this one and I click on this, because if you are on a desktop, you need to control click. So you see it is going back and setting up the default bookmarks. OK, so we have set the bookmarks as well. Now, one more thing which I observe, like not many people do, is like they don't use this selection pane. For me, I think this is a good thing. You need to align the layer and the tab order, and I will just show you what is the so I click on the sales chart. So I will say I will always align all my. So I will say this is sales title. So this is like I know what each object in my. This is my reset button. I will say this is my reset button. This is my city. OK, this is matrix. So I don't like this to be a matrix. I would say this as product line sales. I would say something like this. So it is like I know this is my month. This is my year. So I will align these things like this. So this is my year chart or year slicer. You can mention this up here that these are the slicer object. This is my slicer and this city is also a slicer. So I have this city as a slicer as well. So I have these slicers up here and you can see the reset button. I will put it on the bottom and then product line as well. So you can see I have these layer orders as well. So if I need to hide and unhide, or I need to override one layer of the other, so I can actually use and I can align. And then similarly for the tab order as well, how you want, like I can traverse my dashboard through navigation or tab order. So I can define the tab order as well. So I want to go from left to right and top to bottom. So I can define the flow of my as well. So I can say, OK, my first tab order should be sales title. So it should start from sales title, then it will pick up the city slicer, it will pick up year, it will pick up month, and then it will show me sales, it will show me product sales year over year and product lines and like that. OK, so I have arranged the tab order. So this is the thing which usually many people forget. And before wrapping up, I want to give you a very exciting thing here, which is like I want to see which city is actually dominating in so how the city habits are, like how they buy things. So if I click up here, I think I have shown it in a different video as well. So if I click, no, theming is better. Theming is always better if you have. So I can say, OK, I have this up here and I want to see like, OK, this is my payment methods and how the sales percentage or the how sales contribute. So if I have this one up here, maybe I would say I have the sales measure up here and I would say I need to drop off a sales. So I can see, OK, the sales is by this and this. And if I turn this into a line series, or sorry, not the line series, I turn this into So I can see this one like e-wallet, cash, and credit card. And if I want to see a city-wise habit, so I can maybe change this to a legend, and I can say, okay, these are my city-wise habits. Okay. So I have this chart available up here. And maybe we can align this one for now. Like I can turn on the legends here for just, I will give you a different thing here. I will turn on the y-axis title. Okay, and then I might need to adjust the title here. This is actually showing me sales by payment method. Okay, so I have done this thing, sales by payment method, and then I go back here and maybe, okay, in the same area where it is showing me the title, I need to adjust this thing. Font color white and this one. Okay, so I have now, let me adjust some of the values here in the general tab. Like, okay, this should be, I guess 600 was our initial point, and I want to find this 180 plus 600. So 180 plus 600, so 780. My starting point should be somewhere around 790. Okay, and then Y position is 110. Maybe I will leave as 290 or 300. Okay, now this is giving me something good to work with. I turn on the data labels so I can quickly see like, okay, how much sales I'm making. And in the data label, I can actually turn the unit to 1000. So this become more readable. So this is one way. I don't like this much. I would do something, a different kind of thing here. I would say, let's say city. I will do a pie up here. And I will turn on the detail label, everything title I don't need. I don't need background color, or sorry. I'll need the background color. I will leave the visual header and everything else as well. Only thing which I want to align here is like, I want this to be bottom center. Once I did that, I don't need the title here because these are self-discriminatory. Like, okay, I can have this one as, and now if I arrange this as 790 and 10 and 480 is this, and if I turn the height as this, maybe I need here and adjust this one 120. All these are starting from 120 and this was 290. Okay, so I did this thing. What I did, I just adjusted one thing here. And what you can see is like what I can do here. Like I have these slicers up here, but if I remove this one, let's say if I hide this one. So really cool thing is like I hide this from a pane and I want to show you an interaction here. Like I know this is Abu Dhabi. This is coming up as blue. This is Dubai. This is coming up as dark blue. This is coming as rust. So if I click on this one, you see this is acting as a slicer as well, right? So rather than having a slicer, I can have, and this actually saved me a size as well. I can make it a very sleek, very small size. I can make maybe it 200 or something like 300, right? And maybe I can decrease the height as well to 80. Let's see how far it lets us. Okay, so I can maybe adjust this size, and you can see like this is more sleek, saving the space, it's all about saving the space, utilizing the space and as much as content into your report, which is relevant. One more thing which I can show you here is like I copy paste this thing for now. And I say this, I want this to be a matrix, right? So I have this coming up as a matrix rather than now I remove this one. I have all the payment methods available up here. Let me see if I have this one thing. We are just on the last part. So if you guys want to see this trick, I will show you. Otherwise, we'll leave it at some other time. So I want to have this thing called tail store KPI measure. Yes, this one, this one. Yes, this one. So I want to have this one called sales. So I will create 3 measures up here, and you can create as many as measures as you want. So what I will do here is I will create a measure called for each city. I will create a measure for sales. Like you can actually extend this thing as per your example. So you can do it like if you have finite number 3, 4 KPIs, you can do it very easily. So I will say that, OK, I want this to be a sales. So I want this to be calculated as sales. So let's say this is my sales measure, and I would name this as KPI Abu Dhabi. OK, so once I click this one, I will just copy paste to save my time and save everyone else's time as well. We will have this one available here, and we will have created some quick measure here as well for all those 3 cities. Dubai, and these are cities as well, and these are states as well. So if somebody is saying that Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and Sharjah are states, they are correct, and these are cities as well. So all 3 of them. So UAE actually has 7 states, and good thing is like each state has only 1 city except for Abu Dhabi, if I'm correct. I'm correct, maybe. So this is the thing. So I'm filtering these things out. So we have these 3 measures, and then I would do a simple KPI dominance measure here. I will create one more measure here, and you will see what is the benefit of having that one. So KPI, I will say KPI Abu Dhabi, KPI Dubai, KPI Sharjah. Okay. So what I'm doing here, I'm using simple switch case statement to check if my sales is greater than equal to 1 or not. And this will be a very good case for the conditional formatting as well. Just don't leave now, because if you hesitate, this is a very cool trick which you can share. And so what it is doing, it is showing that, OK, if Abu Dhabi sales is greater than Dubai and Abu Dhabi sales is greater than Sharjah, then this is 1. If Dubai sales is greater than both of the cities, then this is 2. And if Sharjah is greater than both of Abu Dhabi and Dubai, then this is 3. So I created this measure. Now you might not, you see like what is the reason to create this measure. OK, just hold on a second. We will show you how we utilize this measure. So here comes the column, and here we put this measure up here, and we say this as dot. Right. So this does not affect anything. This does not impact anything. I just relabel it. Now, if I go here and I go to the conditional formatting, and I say I want to have this dot thing measure up here, I come here in the background color, and I say I want this to be based on rules. And you remember how we do the rules thing? So we say rules thing, use this KPI dominance measure, and if is, so I will say this 3. I don't like why Microsoft is
pulling this every time the percentage as default. It should be defaulted to maybe it should default to number. Okay, so I will say, okay, my theme color for Abu Dhabi is light blue, this is dark blue, and this is rust. And if it's none of them, I will leave that as blank. Okay, and remember this one, and I will do the same for Abu Dhabi as well. Same for the font color and background color. So I will again do the rules here. Same measure I will use, and then I will create quick 4 rules. Is blank, is 1, 2, 3, and then I made all these a number. I'll change this up here as values if I have aggregation at the total level as well. Now you see all this is coming up nicely. I don't need the totals here. What I can say, I will leave this as I can go here and I can hide the subtotals and the grand totals. So I'll say I don't need subtotals. Okay, fine. And then on the conditional formatting as well for the sales thing, I will turn on the data bars. And I can say, okay, data bars is fine. And maybe advanced control if we have anything, not much for now. What I will prefer to do here is field formatting. Just this one, I want the scale to be thousands, so become more readable as well. And like all the other things here, which we have done, styling, do it as none. So we don't apply any style. This time I want the row padding to be 10, so it become more readable. Okay. And then I can maybe extend these a bit. So, okay. And always try that, make sure that you have sorted it on sales. Okay, now you see, I can quickly see like where I am actually contributing. Okay, how about if I change this from payment method to this one called another attribute called a product line, which I have already used. So if I change this from payment method to product line and remove this one for now, see, I can quickly right away see that, okay, food and beverages, Sharjah is dominating, home style, lifestyle, Dubai is dominating, and then so forth and so on. And we can do like we can do for year again, different year. And this actually gives me a benefit. And if you want to hide this dot, how you can hide this one, you go to the field formatting and simply select the dot, and you can say the apply to label as apply to headers. Apply to labels, headers, yes, this one. And what I need to apply that this both font and background color should be fine, so it disappears from here as well. So any question, did you like this trick or you don't like this trick? Okay, one thing, like this is giving me a vertical scroll, so I will go back in the grid and maybe I can turn this back, row padding to 5. So I can see. Let me know if you have any question, do you like it or not? And then like how much we can have different functionalities built in up here. Any question, I'm welcome to the chat window. Let me try to read. Okay. Okay, I am up for the questions, anything. We can, if we want to publish, we can just right click publish and then it will go into my tenant and publish. Any question, I'm open.
All right. Thanks, Hasham. I think audience has already added their question while your session is going on, and you answered almost every question. Only pending question is about, let's say, if we wanted to have default year as this year and default month as this month, then how can we do that? That is the only question which is pending at this moment. Apart from that, I think we all are good.
Okay, so I think Kurbal. Yes, she and BI Ilic both have the very simple solution. I'll just say how we do it. Like you have this says, this calendar table up here. So let me just align these a bit. So this comes in my frame. So how you handle this at the data model level, like you create one more table and which is only going to have your default selection. Like if today is default month, so it only have your default date. So you create one table, one more calendar table with only the today's date, right? And what you do is like you filter, you bind that default table with your calendar dimension, and you use the default slicer here with this. So if I can just, I'm not able to describe it here. So if you search like this Corbal and default year selection, I think she has a very good YouTube video, which I can share you here. Yeah. So I can share you in this YouTube. Yeah, we. Oh, okay. I think I have played the video. Sorry about that.
No
Okay,
worries.
I thought somebody was asking me a question. Then I realized that okay. So I have put the YouTube link video. So this is the one way, and then you can always set context to your parameters as well, like what is the current date. And this is one thing, like if you are transitioning, someone is transitioning from SSRS to Power BI, they would find it difficult that SSRS usually has this thing called default slicer. You provide the default value, but here you can't provide. So you have to do it in a data modeling layer where you create a table to have only the current year and the current month, and then you map it with your calendar dimension. So always your calendar dimension is pick up here. Also, one more thing here is like if you see in this report, the other report which I have, make sure you always use linings, some kind of a highlighting kind of thing to have clear impact shown up here in your reports. So any question? I think there is no more question. So maybe we can leave. I would wrap it up by saying that okay, you all the organizers, Abhiv, Prince, Dhruv, Harish, I don't remember the other people exact name. All of you guys are doing a wonderful job, and I'm sure that this inaugural meetup will continue and you guys will do regular meetups and you will grow your Power BI user group. With this, I would like to thank everyone. And if you have any question, you can reach out to me on Twitter, LinkedIn, and my social platform. I'm always active on LinkedIn. So you will find me rarely on Twitter or any other social media. The best way to contact me is through LinkedIn. You can contact me through LinkedIn. With that, yes.
Definitely, Hasham. That's a really great session. And Hasham, we have one last question in the chat window. If you can answer it, like the trick that you have shown related, the last trick. There is one question related to it. Like any trick for making the text more readable behind the bar? Is there any trick for that particular thing?
Okay, let me read this thing. Great. Okay, any tricks for making the text more readable behind the bars? Yes, we can. Okay. So let me again share my screen. I think I turned this off. Share screen. Screen. Okay. So you can see my screen. Okay. So you want this text to be more readable, right? So if I go here, I select the field formatting, and you can say the display unit I want. So sales, I have this display unit as 1000. If I want, I can say, okay, I only want this to show a 0 decimal place. So one thing is this, and then maybe I can come here and say, okay, I don't want this to be white. I can actually have this thing called alignment. So I say, okay, always align this thing into center. So it just come up here. And then one more thing, I can do the font thing as well. Font, I'd say, okay, let's white. I can increase the size of the font, but I don't want to increase the size. Also, there is one thing which is missing. Alignment is like there was one more option like inside this bar you always want, or you want this to be outside the bar. So you can do that. I'm not finding it here today. Maybe they have with the recent update it is no more available. So if you do it auto, usually auto is the best thing, like it picks up automatically. Main reason to use auto, I would always prefer you guys to use auto. Reason is like, okay, let's revert this to 1000 and then turn on the data bars as well. So conditional formatting, go back and turn on the data bars. Okay, so why I would prefer you guys to do auto. So I am rendering it here in my screen. So if somebody is rendering on the tablet, if somebody is rendering on their phone, iPhone or Android device, what happens, like if you fix the place, that, okay, always render it inside the always render it inside left or center or right, what happens is like it does not render properly on that particular screen dimensions. So you have to keep those elements. Like if I go into the focus mode, and you can see like it's adjusting, it's increasing the height, size and everything. But also let me show you here the web view. So view, and if I go back here, so mobile layout. So you can actually turn on the mobile layout thing like that, how you want to enter, people want to see it on the mobile. So for those things, you leave those options to the auto. So actually this thing called this property, this is the very key property, responsive. Many people actually don't remember this one, this thing called responsive. So if you see this one, why this responsive is no more. Okay, let me do one thing here. I have one hidden thing here. Let me check in that. So I have this one city slicer here available. Let me select this one and try to find, because there is a property called responsive. Yes, this one. Okay, so what is the difference between responsive turn on and off? So not many people understand. So what's happening, like when you're rendering your report on Android device or tablet or a smaller or wider screen, so it automatically adjusts the slicers, it automatically adjusts the screen size, text size, and all the labeling, which it finds the best suitable place for that. Like if it does not render, sometimes what happens when you publish the report, it's only appearing if there are too many elements in the slicer, only this thing, few slicer coming up and not other slicer are coming up. So to solve this problem, what you can do, you can check the responsive property of each element, and each element has their responsive property. You can turn this off and on. So make sure you turn this property on. So Power BI render, or when it is rendering in the browser, it will render optimal settings with the browser. So with this, hope I answered the question of
Chris, yes, I think so. Chris, if Hasham has answered your question, just provide the sign in the chat window, or if you have anything else to bring up, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay, so this is the final product. You can take the screenshot. You guys can take a screenshot and say what you guys did today. You guys did a wonderful job.
Exactly. Yes, Hasham. So I think today's session was a full pack session. Like we learned lots of things from the beginner to intermediate level and prepare this wonderful dashboard. So audience really enjoyed, and lots of question has been asked in the chat window throughout the session as well. So great to see you here on this particular session, and definitely for upcoming session as well, we will wish that you will connect us again. And Harsham, one last thing I just wanted to ask, like any other events that you have in upcoming future, you can also share it on our platform so that audience can connect more for upcoming Power BI events and all.
Okay, there is I want to make an announcement here, like there is a Power BI Fest 2021 coming up here. And this is a full day 24-hour event where we have back-to-back sessions in 3 different time zones. We have session in Australian time zone, we have session in Asian time zone, we have session in European time zone, and we have session in American time zone. And we have already 75 plus speakers. All the MVPs, MCTs, all the big names will be there. And we have Prince, I think you are aware, like we have already crossed 2,500 registrations for the event. So this is going to be a huge event. Please join the event. And the thing is, we have raffles, we have gifts, prizes, and we have some good, cool stuff for the community to distribute as well. So I'm just making this announcement, and I just provide the link name. If you guys want, I can provide you the URL as well. So
yes, absolutely. We are actually waiting for that big event. So it's a very huge event, and as you mentioned, so many MVPs, MCTs are going to represent so many cool things. So I'm also really excited for that event. I also submitted one of my sessions, so see you there as well.
And for one announcement for the speakers as well. So you guys can still submit your session. If you want to present something, you can still submit your session. I think today is the last day. I have made announcement as well on the Microsoft Teams channels as well. So if anybody is interested, or any speakers who is good enough to speak at the platform, we welcome everyone without any discrimination. So we welcome speakers from all the regions. So that's it. I really love the way you guys actually helping out the community and building the local communities and enabling them to the greater international stage.
Thank you so much, Hashim. This was really comprehensive, and could not have been a better session to be part of a launch event that you learn things from scratch, and that too for Power BI. So really, really comprehensive. I'm glad that this happened, and this was so interactive too. Like we saw a lot of questions coming in, and this was really amazing. Thank you so much for being a part of this.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just for the last word, next month we will have our next event. So stay tuned with us on all our social media handles. We will announce the next event information very soon with you. And we just need your guys' support throughout this entire journey. So today, if I'm talking about the overall analytics, more than 100 people joined throughout this entire event with us. So thank you so much. It's a huge milestone for us, and it makes us more confident to have more exactly more events in upcoming future. Thank you so much, everyone. All right, so with this, any last word from any organizing team, Kumar or Abhinav or Prince, you wanted to have any last word here?
Thanks everyone for joining. Yep, it was really fun to learn and listen to great speakers over here. Looking forward for some more events.
Sure, definitely. Thank you so much, Harsham, once again for this wonderful session, and see you soon in your upcoming events, and see you soon for other Delhi Power BI user group event as well in upcoming future. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, Sanjiv, for staying with us through the event. I see you're still there.
Yes. And Chris is also with us here, so that's
I said we have blessings now.
Exactly. Yes. So yeah, with this, I think it was Sunday evening, and everyone has been with us so far. So that's really great. And see you soon in upcoming meetups very soon. So with this, we would like to wrap up the event and see you soon once again.
Bharti is saying something, Dhruvin. I guess there is hand raised.
Yes, Anil, you can unmute yourself and just speak up, or maybe you can add in the chat window as well.
Yeah, hi everyone. Actually, I was just looking for the chat box, and unfortunately, I clicked on hands.
No worries at all. Right. Thank you so much.
I find this session is very interesting and very informative. So I believe you people are doing very great job. So thank you so much for this session.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us here. Yeah. All right. So I think it's time to wrap up and see you soon with some amazing content in upcoming month, next month. So stay tuned with us on all social media handle. With this, we are signing off. Have a great evening. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.